The story kicks off in a shadowy alley where a terrified little girl stands frozen. A woman with a twisted, eerie smile charges at her and snatches a small pouch from her hands. The girl cries and begs for it back, but the woman slaps her, opens the pouch and finds a gemstone ring inside. Her smile grows unhinged. She laughs manically while the girl trembles in fear and confusion. Everything changed just 3 days ago when monsters attacked the city. The girl's parents died trying to protect her. Alone, she was thrown into a cruel orphanage where older kids bullied her, and the caretaker treated her like dirt. She hated the city full of rotten adults, but her parents' words echoed in her heart, that deep down, no one is truly evil, and that she should always try to be a kind child. For 3 long years, she tried to smile and endure it all. But her patience shattered the day she found out the orphanage was secretly selling kids. She tried to ignore it, until it was her turn. That night, she ran. The pouch, stolen from her, was her only keepsake from her parents. She never even looked inside until now. The strange woman who stole it suddenly called her by name. Alicia! Shocked, Alicia froze. The woman grinned wider, muttered something about how hard it was to find her, gently stroked her cheek and mumbled that Alicia's grandfather wouldn't be happy seeing her like this. But Alicia didn't even know she had a grandfather. Then the woman declared something insane, that from now on, her grandfather would become her grandfather. She started ranting. Apparently, she'd regained memories that their world was actually a dating sim game. She was just a useless NPC who, by the time the heroine appeared, was already old and powerless. Despite all her training, she was tired of being background. She wanted to be the heroine now. Smiling eerily, she choked Alicia and pulled out a knife. She revealed a black magic stone, formed from blood and magic, meant to store her soul. She planned to implant it into Alicia's heart, overwrite her completely, and steal her life. After 5 years of crafting that stone, she was ready to finally become the heroine. Alicia tried to struggle, pushing away the tip of the dagger in her hand. Her palm was badly cut, and then because of her careless movements, she touched the magic stone and flung it away. Her blood slightly absorbed into it. At that moment, her head immediately felt dizzy and widened in horror. For a few seconds, she saw a flashback of the life of the woman who attacked her. For a moment, she thought it was herself, but then she jolted awake. Thousands of pieces of information rushed into her brain. As Alicia struggled to breathe, she grabbed a rock and smashed it into the woman's head, sending her sprawling. Wasting no time, Alicia seized the fallen knife. With calm, deliberate movements, she stabbed the woman straight through the heart. Her killer stared wide-eyed, stunned by the cold fire now burning in Alicia's eyes. With the body lying still, Alicia trembled and exhaled shakily. She now held the woman's memories, everything about the game world, its history, and its magic. She picked up the cursed stone and crushed it before tossing the pieces into a sewer drain. Then she walked away. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She had a purpose. But first, there was unfinished business. That night, Alicia crept back to the orphanage. Hiding in the bushes, she watched the drunken caretaker search for her. When the house fell quiet, she snuck into the woman's room and, with a swift motion, slit her throat. The woman died instantly. According to the woman's memories, if the caretaker died, a kind priest would take over the orphanage. Still, Alicia clenched her jaw. Bitter. This world ran on cruel rules, with dating game logic she couldn't accept. She refused to believe she was born just to become some romance game's heroine, that her parents had to die for the story to move forward. She would reject this world script and survive on her own terms. In this twisted game world, the female lead is supposed to be surrounded by love interests called Silverwings, fated to fall for her and create a perfect fairy tale. Alicia was that protagonist, apparently, but instead of basking in romance, she was orphaned and nearly murdered. Later, her noble blood would be revealed and her life would change, as the game dictated, but Alicia didn't care. She wouldn't let anyone write her life for her. As the city bells rang out the hour, Alicia left town. She had no money and no plan, just a stolen bag and a burning will to survive. She figured the crazy woman who tried to kill her had been an adventurer. Maybe if Alicia became one too, she could travel freely and escape the city's grip. Her body ached. She was just a 7-year-old girl, wandering alone. Eventually, she slipped into the forest, drank from her water bottle, tore off a piece of fine bread, probably meant for nobles, and ate it with a sad little smile. She wrapped her injured foot, checked her supplies, and picked some berries for the road. Digging through the stolen bag, she found a book filled with diagrams and spells, but she couldn't read it well yet. She'd have to learn. She recognized one herb from the book that could help heal her wounds. Then, an idea struck her. If no one knew she was a girl, maybe she'd be safer. With steely resolve, she grabbed her knife and chopped her hair short. When night fell, she killed a venomous snake without flinching. Fear wouldn't rule her anymore. She was determined to live. The next day, she stumbled across an abandoned camp. Smearing ash in her hair to make it look duller, she completed her disguise. She looked like a scrappy little boy now. She found a small spring, splashed water on her face, and tried to plan her next move. Magic was everywhere in this world, vital for survival and fighting. For now, she'd train as hard as she could. But as the sun set, something caught her eye. An unfamiliar man sitting by a campfire. Before she could sneak away, he shouted, demanding she come out. Alicia froze, heart pounding. Then she ran. The man silently chased after her. She made a sharp turn and ducked behind a tree to catch her breath, only for an axe to slam into the trunk beside her. He found her. Out of options, Alicia grabbed her blade and rushed him. But he was faster. One blow to the stomach sent her flying. She hit the ground hard, vision fading. The last thing she saw was the man's panicked face before everything went black. When she woke up, he was smiling sheepishly and apologizing. He thought she was a monster. He gave her food, not realizing she was a girl, and asked where her parents were. She just shook her head. Understanding, he dropped the topic and handed her a new knife to replace the broken one. Alicia took it and thanked him quietly. Then something unexpected. He gently patted her head. She flinched, startled, but then an idea formed in her mind. She boldly asked him to teach her magic. Surprised, the man agreed. The magic he knew best was reinforcement magic. He stood, clenched his fists, and a glowing light wrapped around his body. Alicia gasped. Without thinking, she reached out to touch it and got blasted back. The man rushed over, worried, but what shocked him more was the magic trying to mimic his power inside Alicia's blood. Her body had reacted instantly, weak, but real. Encouraged, Alicia tried again, but her strength drained fast. The man explained reinforcement magic required a lot of energy and needed to be used wisely. Then, after a moment of thought, he slapped his knee and grinned. He declared that he'd teach her basic magic from now on. The next day, the man introduced himself as Feld. First, he asked Alicia if she could see her own status, then explained that with the use of appraisal, one could see another person's abilities, including hers. Feld wrote down what he saw. Overall, her numbers were quite low, but they were normal for a child her age. He then tossed something to her. It was an appraisal crystal, a tool that would help her measure her own strength. After staring at it for a while, numbers began to appear, just as Feld had described. Curious, Alicia pointed the crystal at Feld. The number shot into the thousands. She swallowed hard, suddenly very aware of how vast the gap between them was. She asked how long she'd have to rely on the crystal before being able to use appraisal on her own. Feld said it would likely take a while. Worse, the crystal was expensive to buy on the market. Ignoring Alicia's worried expression, Feld ran toward the forest and called for her to follow. Today, they were going hunting. After a long sprint, Feld told her to crouch down and stay quiet. In a low whisper, he instructed her to focus her senses and feel the flow of magic in the forest to detect anything nearby. They moved carefully, keeping their presence hidden. Feld taught her how to suppress her aura and sneak up on prey. Then, with a swift motion, he hurled his axe at a rabbit and struck it down. He smiled after demonstrating, and for the rest of the day they practiced hunting and processing their catch for cooking. By evening, Alicia was utterly exhausted. She sighed, while Feld still looked fresh and energetic, calling her over to cook. He started a campfire using fire magic. Alicia observed him carefully. She thought that by sharpening her senses to each elemental flow, she might eventually be able to read magic particles herself. Before she knew it, she had fallen asleep. The next morning began with Feld shouting her awake. It was time to train in combat. As a swordsman, he could only teach her the basics of handling daggers. If she wanted to improve her magical combat, she'd need to join a guild or find a mentor. Alicia sighed in disappointment but said nothing. Feld then taught her how to grip a dagger, how to stand, and how to strike. Alicia did her best to match his speed, but Feld was simply too strong and didn't go easy on her. Still, he was quietly impressed. The child before him had sharp eyes, a firm gaze, and unshakable determination. She learned quickly, had guts, and showed real potential. He smiled faintly as he decided he would teach her how to survive in this world. Even so, Alicia had clearly reached her limit. Her face was pale with exhaustion. Feld told her she was doing well, and now she just needed to combine her skills with body-strengthening magic. But he warned her, if she used up all her magic power, she would pass out. He stepped forward and cast a healing spell on her. He explained that her enhancement magic would naturally improve as her combat ability increased. All she needed now was to better understand her own body. Alicia nodded, and then it hit her. Feld had never treated her like a child. His training had been brutal, but his words had always been warm. In the end, they had to part ways. Feld had his own mission. Seeing her lower her head in sadness, Feld smiled. He knelt down and gently ruffled her hair. "Get stronger," he said, "so we can meet again someday." The words filled Alicia's heart with warmth and determination. She mumbled a quiet response as he stood, waving at her before walking away. She watched his broad back disappear into the trees. He reminded her so much of someone dear, her father, whom she missed dearly. She could almost see her younger self running to catch up to him, but she clenched her jaw and turned away with a heavy heart. That night, Alicia practiced elemental magic, starting with water and fire. She had some success and felt satisfied for now, quietly watching the moon. Back in her hometown, chaos had erupted. The 2 murders Alicia had committed earlier were beginning to stir panic in the community. At the orphanage, children were seen cleaning up the alley where one of the killings had occurred. One girl with long hair was sweeping near a gutter when she found a shard of magic stone Alicia had discarded. The moment she touched it, all the memories and desires of the wicked woman Alicia had slain poured into her. The girl smiled widely. "I'll become the heroine of this world," she whispered to herself. Back with Alicia, thanks to Feld's guidance, she could now use fire and water magic. Next, she tried hardening magic, essentially earth manipulation to solidify sand or soil. But when she tried to clench the dirt in her hand, it quickly crumbled. Adding water turned it to mud, so she focused on adjusting the composition through concentration, and soon the soil in her hand began to solidify like stone. Uncertain if she had succeeded, she threw the lump at a tree. It shattered on impact. Her magic had worked, but not perfectly. While washing her face, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the water. Her natural pink hair glowed faintly, and she sighed. Looking around for something to cover it, she found a patch of mud. She tried to use hardening magic on it, but nothing happened. The mud was too wet. After adjusting the flow of magic again, she finally managed to harden it. Her face lit up in delight. She was beginning to understand. From this clay, she learned that her magic needed to fill the empty particles within the earth. This time, when she hurled it at a tree, it didn't break. She picked it up again and smiled with satisfaction. Heading back into the forest, she gathered herbs and plants. Then she caught the scent of smoke in the distance. Feld had taught her to read the wind's flow. Following the smoke's trail, she began practicing wind magic. On her first try, she managed to form a small whirlwind. Since Alicia had learned how to sense magic in the wind, conjuring it no longer felt difficult. She waited by the river until the scent of smoke faded, then headed toward its source to cook a meal. She sliced up the rabbit meat and placed it in a small clay bowl she had crafted using hardening magic. After adding a bit of water magic, a wave of dizziness hit her. She had used a bit too much magic. Taking a deep breath, she sparked a flame, hoping the bowl wouldn't shatter since the hardening enchantment was only temporary. Once the water boiled, the meat began to change color. She scooped up a spoonful and tasted it. Her senses immediately recoiled. It was terrible, far worse than anything Feld had cooked. Still, she forced herself to finish it. After eating, she practiced dagger techniques again, determined to develop a signature move. She tried throwing the blade like a dart multiple times, but it never landed properly. Undeterred, she realized her arm strength wasn't enough yet. So, she switched tactics, gathering stones and creating a cord using her own cut hair, braiding it into a thin rope. As night fell, she scavenged for berries to eat and climbed a tree for shelter. Now that she could sense magic energy, she felt acutely aware of her surroundings. She remembered hearing stories, how spirits created magic particles, and though it still remained a mystery to her, the moment she focused on it, the particles around her began to glow. Each shimmer took on its natural elemental color: fiery red, pure white, breezy green. At first she thought she was imagining it, but even the next morning, the glow remained. She could now both see and feel the magic around her. Alicia began experimenting. She focused on the most abundant element nearby, syncing her own magic flow with the surrounding particles to try and vanish from sight. For a moment, it worked, but she couldn't maintain it long. Her magic control wasn't stable enough. She sighed, but refused to give up. As she refilled her water supply, a snake suddenly slithered out from the bushes and passed by her without noticing. Alicia realized her stealth ability was beginning to work. It hid her presence even from wild animals. Quickly, she drew her dagger from behind her back and stabbed the snake's head, keeping it for later as food. Then she began practicing with her new homemade weapon, hair thread and stones. It worked much like a slingshot, letting her strike from a distance without expending much energy. After a few hours, she began to master the tool. Since the thread was made from her own body, she could channel magic through it easily, enhancing her throws with power and precision. The next morning, Alicia packed her things. That day, she had decided to head toward the city. She expected to arrive by nightfall. As she walked, she continued practicing her magic senses and body enhancement spells. At this point, the only elements she couldn't use were light and dark. She had no foundational understanding of either. Thinking that maybe, since she could now see the colors of magic, light magic might come easily, she tried to conjure a beam from her hand. It flickered and vanished instantly. She paused to think. Maybe light needed to be bound to something, like fire on a torch. Out of curiosity, she drew her dagger and whispered a light incantation. To her surprise, a bright beam burst from the blade. Panicked, she quickly muttered a dark spell and the light vanished. She sighed in relief. At least she could use both elements, even if only for a split second. Alicia continued her silent journey until night fell. Her eyes widened in awe. The magic particles around her now glowed more clearly than ever, like fireflies lighting her path. After hours of walking, she finally reached the city gate. It was closed, of course, but even if it were open, getting in during the day would be difficult. In this world, everything depended on social status. Nobles could go wherever they pleased. Commoners needed permits and had to pay taxes. Merchants and adventurers had to offer payment at the gate. Slaves, meanwhile, had no choice but to rely on their master's will. Alicia, being a free person without affiliation, had the worst odds. No protection, no rights. She risked being robbed before even entering the city. She had considered joining a guild, but with no status and poor starting rank, she'd only become an easy target for bullying. Fortunately, thanks to the knowledge she had taken from the woman she killed, Alicia knew of a hidden path into the city. Carefully, she crept behind the gate and found a narrow opening behind some overgrown shrubs. She slipped inside, entering a dilapidated slum district. Alicia looked around. There were very few magic particles here, meaning she couldn't use stealth magic effectively. Cautiously, she crept toward a well and tried to draw water quickly. That's when she heard someone yelling. Turning her head, she saw a boy and a girl glaring at her, seemingly upset that she was using the well. She recognized them. They were the same children she had seen before sneaking into the city. The boy demanded payment for the water. Alicia responded with a sharp, piercing glare that made both children recoil in fright. She didn't say a word. She understood their situation. Reaching into her pouch, she tossed them a bronze coin. The children stared in shock. The boy immediately ran after her. Alicia turned around, empowered her body with magic, and struck the boy swiftly, knocking him to the ground. She pointed her dagger at him without hesitation. Before anything else could happen, the another girl screamed and rushed toward them. Alicia backed away and sheathed her dagger, watching carefully as the girl hugged her brother tightly, sobbing. Alicia let out a tired sigh and slowly approached, calmly asking where she could find a shop. The boy shakily pointed her in the right direction. She nodded and turned to leave, but just then, a loud voice rang out. An adult man, shouting at the two children, demanding money. Alicia turned, watching as the man snatched the bronze coin she had given them. The boy begged for it back. In response, the man grew furious, raising a bottle of liquor ready to strike. Alicia froze for a second. Memories flashed back of the orphanage owner who once did the same thing to her. Her jaw clenched. Without thinking, she hurled a rock at the drunken man's neck, making him stagger back. The two kids he was threatening looked at her, wide-eyed, but Alicia stayed calm. The man turned, furious. He smashed his liquor bottle and turned it into a jagged weapon, clearly ready to hurt her. But Alicia didn't flinch. She dashed behind a wall, not to run, but to plan. She reloaded her slingshot, tightened her grip, and with fiery determination, leapt toward him. One solid blow to the head. He collapsed instantly. Breathing hard, Alicia glanced down at her slingshot and realized she had loaded it with coins instead of stones. Without hesitation, she pulled out her knife and slit the man's throat. She didn't want to risk him hurting anyone again. Then she turned to the two kids. Tossing them some money, she told them to take care of the body. The older boy nodded nervously. In a place like this, money always came first, no matter how dirty the job. Alicia walked away, feeling a strange mix of emotions. But what mattered was that she'd taken down another one of her so-called enemies. Her next stop was a shop. She walked in confidently and locked eyes with the grumpy old shopkeeper at the back. He scoffed at her intense stare, but Alicia ignored him. She asked if he sold knives. Without a word, he pointed to a rack. She tested one, but didn't like the weight. Too heavy. She put it back and asked about appraisal crystals. The price was ridiculously high, and the man didn't care about her complaints. But Alicia knew how dirty the trade game worked. Smiling, she asked if he had any discarded crystals. The old man raised a brow, a little surprised, then pointed to a dusty corner. Alicia crouched and rummaged through the pile. Most were damaged and barely usable, but thanks to her ability to see magic particles, she could pick out the good ones. She brought a few to the counter. As the shopkeeper wrapped them up, she grabbed some food, gear, and a few iron spikes too. Then she paid the exact amount. No chance for the man to cheat her. She packed everything into her bag. Her plan? Hunt monsters and sell the loot back to this shop. Just as she reached the door, the old man called out. He suggested she visit the blacksmith at the end of the street for a proper weapon. Alicia gave a quiet nod and stepped outside. There, squinting in the daylight, she spotted the same two kids from earlier. The boy told her they'd finished disposing of the body. Then, shyly, he introduced himself as Gil, and the little girl was his sister, Shuri. Alicia almost said her real name, but caught herself. Instead, she introduced herself as Arya. Gil and Shuri smiled at the name. Alicia wandered around the slums, observing. She made a mental note not to buy anything. Best to look like she had no money. She soon realized the two siblings were tailing her. Uncomfortable, she took off running and lost them in the maze of alleys. Back in the nearby woods, she pulled out one of her appraisal crystals and checked her stats. A stream of numbers appeared. Her basic stats had risen, and she'd even gained some new skills. Her eyes lit up with excitement. Sure, her combat skills were still weak, but she could learn. She would learn. Alicia was determined to shape her own destiny. Meanwhile, far away in the royal capital at the former Dandel estate, something stirred. A young noblewoman had just awakened after a long illness. She sat up, walked to the mirror, and froze. The girl stared at her reflection in shock. Somehow she knew exactly what this place was. She wasn't from this world. She had reincarnated into a game. Her knees went weak when a maid called her name. Clara. She remembered everything. In the game, Clara was the villain, and villains always met tragic ends, ruin, execution, no happy endings. Pale and panicked, Clara grabbed a pen and notebook and began writing down everything she remembered about the game's events and lore. She had to avoid that fate at all costs, and the only way she could think to do that? She'd have to kill the heroine before the main story even began. It's been 2 weeks since Alicia started living in the forest. Sometimes, she visits the nearby town, where she's grown used to seeing Jill and Shuri, who always greet her warmly. Her days are mostly filled with intense training. But there's a problem. She still hasn't unlocked the dagger skill, and her body enhancement level is stuck at the lowest tier. She keeps practicing with her slingshot too. But recently, a sharp pain started bothering her knees. From what she's known, it's likely growth pain. Apparently, using too much magic is pushing her body to grow faster than usual, and that's causing the discomfort. So, Alicia shifts her focus to magic, hoping to become an elemental mage. But a new hurdle appears. The knowledge she got from that mysterious woman barely covered dark magic. She didn't know much about it. Light magic, however, she knew fairly well. So Alicia decides to start there. She first tried healing her wounds. She recites a healing spell, but nothing. No change in her status. Still, she keeps trying for a while, before giving up and lying down in frustration. Then a memory hits her. Feld and those woman's old master both had used healing magic quickly and effortlessly. Alicia's eyes widen as she realizes something. The original spell might have been much longer and had just been shortened over generations. But if that's the case, she'll need a solid understanding of the full spell to even begin. It won't be easy. Feld himself took nearly a year to grasp it. Alicia stays silent for a moment, then stands up. It might take time, but she's determined to keep trying every single day. And she does, chanting the spell non-stop every minute through weapon practice, hunting, even late at night when she checks her status. She keeps this up for almost a week. On the 7th day, something feels different. Suddenly, Alicia realizes she's misunderstood something fundamental. She needs to think logically. The original spell probably restores vitality, and the healing is just the result. So she tweaks her chant and tries again. This time, it works. Her healing magic finally activates. Even her appraisal crystal confirms it. She's officially awakened to light attribute magic. Later, Alicia heads back into town. On the way, she stops abruptly and glances behind her. Something feels off, but there's no one there. She brushes off the feeling and heads to a store, where she's met with the usual grumpy face of the old shopkeeper. She's here to buy better, more nutritious food. The old man offers her a bag of burnt nuts. She asks if there's anything else. Digging into her pouch, she pulls out a strange seed. The shopkeeper's eyes go wide. Suspiciously, he asks where she got it, and if she knows what it is. Turns out the seed is a rare and valuable ingredient for potions. He examines it. It's not in perfect condition, but Alicia manages to talk him into buying it with a reasonable excuse. She earns 3 silver coins. Just as they're wrapping up the deal, 2 kids rush into the shop. It's Jill and Shuri. Shuri happily hugs Alicia, and Jill looks surprised to see her. Proudly, Jill pulls out a freshly caught rabbit. Alicia jokes it's a shame they're gonna sell it instead of eating it. Then she asks why they came running in such a hurry. Jill mentions they ran into a scary-looking man. Alicia immediately thinks of Feld, but the old shopkeeper warns them that it might have been a bandit. Alicia's expression hardens. That uneasy feeling from earlier flashes back. She quickly leaves the shop, with Jill and Shuri trailing behind. Alicia activates her stealth magic, syncing herself with the flow of mana around her. She manages to shake off the 2 siblings with ease, but just as she steps forward again, she freezes. She senses something. Someone is nearby. Slowly turning around, she spots a figure cloaked in stealth magic. Alarm bells go off in her head. Alicia bolts. The figure throws a dagger. She reacts fast and dodges it midair. A quiet chuckle follows. The person reveals himself. It's a man. He looks impressed and grins at her like he's found something interesting. Alicia doesn't wait. She dashes off again. Another dagger flies toward her and stops her in her tracks. This man isn't just some ordinary bandit. Thinking fast, she pulls out a stick of iron and hurls it at him. At the same time, she casts a light spell, creating a blinding flash, her chance to escape. But then the man mutters a strange incantation. A high-pitched ringing pierces her ears. Alicia stumbles, paralyzed. A second later, the man reaches her and touches her head with a wicked grin. She's caught. Alicia wasn't ready to give up. She pulled out her dagger and lunged at the man, using all her strength to break free from his grip. Gasping for air, she stumbled back and braced herself. If this were a real fight, she'd have no other choice. She bit down on a metal pin, activated her body-enhancing magic, and dropped into a low stance. The man blinked in surprise, visibly flustered as Alicia charged at him like a wild beast. As she rushed forward, he suddenly yelled that he only wanted to find a kid who could work for him, That stopped her in her tracks. The man laughed awkwardly and apologized while Alicia just stared at him in disgust. As she healed her injuries, her thoughts drifted to Feld. This guy reminded her a little too much of him. She asked who he was, and he introduced himself as Willow, a scout, basically an informant working inside the Adventurers Guild. He showed her his rank 4 adventurer badge. In short, he was strong. Alicia cut to the point and asked about the job he mentioned. Willow explained it was a kind of guard role, physically demanding, but well paid. He also made it clear he wouldn't force her to do anything. After thinking it over, Alicia agreed. They exchanged a look, and just like that, a deal was made. On the way to the guild, Alicia couldn't shake the feeling that people were staring at her. Willow noticed too, and took her to a clothing shop. He asked the clerk for a hooded cloak to help cover her face. At first, Alicia thought it was because her worn-out clothes were the problem. But as she tried on a new cloak, she noticed the women in the store blushing and stealing glances at her. Willow handed her a pair of shorts and bluntly told her that her face was too pretty and her clothes too revealing. It was drawing too much attention. After that wardrobe change, they arrived at the bustling Adventurers Guild. At the counter, Willow began registering Alicia under dagger combat. But when the receptionist asked her to demonstrate an active combat skill, Alicia hesitated. She didn't have one. Willow was stunned. Still, he offered to teach her the basics so she could get in. But then he remembered she could use healing magic. That might be enough for a test, the receptionist said, and went off to get approval from the guildmaster. When she returned, she apologized. A young mage like Alicia could easily get bullied in the guild. It'd be better if she joined a party with someone like Willow. But Alicia cut in. She didn't want to enter as a healer. She wanted to learn to fight. Both adults were taken aback but smiled approvingly. Willow started filling out the rest of the form. They moved to the training hall and Alicia picked up some basic combat techniques. Her performance impressed the receptionist, who clapped for her and officially registered her as a rank 1 adventurer, handing over her ID badge. Outside, Willow asked to see Alicia's dagger. She handed it over, and he examined it, asking if someone gave it to her. It looked like a backup weapon, something that would dull and break over time. Alicia looked uneasy. Smiling, Willow led her to someone who could help. They walked through narrow alleys until they reached a stone house. Willow shouted for someone named Galbus. Soon, a dwarf appeared. He immediately recognized Willow and grinned when handed a bundle. Inside was a magic stone from a fire-breathing lizard. Galbus excitedly rushed to his forge with it, but Willow stopped him. He wanted his payment first. The dwarf grumbled, but agreed to rework Willow's sword. Then Galbus noticed Alicia and gave her a puzzled look. Willow introduced her as his little sister and asked if he had any daggers suited for her. Galbus scoffed. He didn't make knives for kids, but pointed to a pile in the corner. Willow sighed and went digging through it. Meanwhile, Alicia wandered near the furnace and mumbled how beautiful the fire's color was. Galbus perked up. She could see elemental colors. Then, spotting her hair, he realized who she was. The shopkeeper from Alicia's old haunt must have mentioned her. With a laugh, Galbus waved Willow over. He wasn't giving Alicia some junk blade. He went inside and came back with a black-handled dagger. Willow's eyes widened. It was mana steel, incredibly light but strong and oddly shaped. He'd always thought it was too flimsy to cut anything, but Galbus said it was perfect for someone like Alicia. The dwarf offered it for 1 gold, telling her to pay when she could. Willow chuckled and reminded Alicia to thank him properly. Alicia remembered how she used to hate adults, but ever since starting this journey, she'd met a few who were different, kind even. She gave a quiet smile. Galbus then invited her to help finish crafting her new blade. By morning, it was ready. When Alicia picked it up, she was surprised by how light it was. Galbus laughed heartily and promised to maintain it whenever she needed. With a silent smile, Alicia and Willow said their goodbyes. Before they left, Galbus gave her one last tip. If she went to the capital and met his brother, she might be able to get her hands on some proper armor. For now, Alicia is tagging along with Willow on a trip to the city of Taurus. They leave through the city gates, walking at a relaxed pace. Food's not a problem. Willow brought enough for both of them. As they travel, he starts teaching her how to fight, using small goblins that, to Alicia's surprise, are stronger than she expected. Willow warns her not to rely too much on her appraisal crystal. He tells her to trust what her body feels. Then, with a mischievous grin, he adds that tonight, Alicia will learn how to hunt bandits. He tells her to focus on the ground and tune into her night vision using mana. Slowly, footprints become visible, about 10 of them. Willow shows her how to analyze the tracks and explains she can use the same trick to track monsters in the forest. They follow the trail toward a dim campfire, not too far off, coming from an abandoned village where the bandits have set up camp. They crouch and observe from a distance. Willow clicks his tongue. The numbers is more than he taught. He pats Alicia's head and tells her she can back out if she's scared, but of course she refuses. One of the bandits, already drunk, stumbles away from the group. Without hesitation, Willow silently sneaks up and knocks him out cold. He asks Alicia to keep watch while he disappears into the shadows, taking out the bandit one by one. Alicia pulls out her appraisal crystal and scans the bandits, trying to gauge their strength. She notices one of them heading her way. Panic rises. Should she warn Willow? But she doesn't want to rely on him. Instead, she throws off her cloak and steps out on her own. With an innocent smile, she catches the man's attention. As he approaches, Alicia channels enhancement magic and uses her slingshot to strike his head hard. While he's dazed, she lunges with a dagger, straight to the throat. She slips her cloak back on. The area seems quiet again until a shout rings out. Another bandit has spotted her standing over 2 corpses. No time to run. He draws his sword and points it at her. Alicia glares back, her intensity making him hesitate. She hurls a metal spike. He dodges, and she bolts into the woods. The man casts light magic on his blade. Alicia counters with dark magic. Their spells clash over and over, lighting up the forest with bursts of energy. The bandit grows frustrated, screaming in anger. He charges, swinging his sword at a nearby tree to scare her, then lifts his blade again. Alicia focuses her mana, casting an even stronger dark spell. The bandit begins to tire. He turns to flee, but Alicia doesn't let him. She sprints after him and slashes at his leg. Once, twice, again. Dawn breaks and the sunlight lets the man clearly see her face. He laughs bitterly, preparing to strike her down, but he's too weak. Blood pours from his legs. Dizzy, he stumbles and collapses. Alicia raises her dagger. Her plan worked perfectly. She finishes him off without hesitation. When she returns, she finds Willow waiting by a pile of bandit corpses, grinning and waving. He'd let her handle the fight alone on purpose, to see what she could do. He chuckles as he inspects the sword she took from the bandit, then asks her to light his cigarette with fire magic. Alicia obliges, then uses a much bigger flame to torch the bodies. The two of them stand together, watching the blaze as if it were a cozy campfire. 3 days later, they arrive in Taurus. They stay at an inn. Alicia wakes to a peaceful breakfast, still recovering from a high fever she'd had for 2 days. She checks her stats. Her strength's gone up a little, and she's now able to use appraisal magic, though it drains a lot of mana. Willow comments on how her hair's started to look more vivid. She hadn't noticed. He explains it's a side effect of her growing mana. He hands her a slip of paper with a dark attribute illusion spell, something to help her disguise her appearance. He also gives her a set of small knives, specially crafted for assassins. Alicia stares at the weapons for a moment, then thanks him quietly. They leave the inn and head out. On the way, Willow explains they're going to the Dandel estate. Their job is to protect some nobles vacationing there. This time, the request specifically asked for someone Alicia's age, probably because there will be noble children present too. Alicia knows this might be risky. She's been trying to avoid the main plot of this world, but if she wants to grow stronger, this is a chance she can't pass up. 1 week later, they finally arrived at the north area of the kingdom, Dandel's territory. It was a powerful noble domain, and possibly the place where Alicia would come face to face with the villain of this world. Meanwhile, in the royal capital's castle, Prime Minister Melrose was having a private conversation with a servant. The king and his family had just departed for Dandel. Claydale Kingdom itself was split into 3 regions, and Dandel was one of the elite territories held by a high-ranking noble family. The servant, who was secretly part of the assassin division, tried to reassure Melrose. His sister, Sarah, would be overseeing security in the area. Melrose sighed heavily. Lately, he'd been dreaming of retiring, taking a vacation, or just spending time with a grandchild. He had recently received a report that his long-lost granddaughter might have been spotted in another city. But Melrose didn't want to believe it. The girl's appearance was just too different. His runaway daughter, who had once eloped with a knight, had unique peach blonde hair. If this girl really was her daughter, she should have inherited that too. Sure, the girl had the right name, Alicia, and she seemed to know about noble bloodlines, but Melrose still doubted it. Just in case, he told his servant to secretly send a trusted agent to check on her. If the girl wasn't lying, she'd be taken into the care of a branch family. Back to Alicia. She was staring off into the distance, caught up in her thoughts as she looked at the massive castle. Soon, she and Willow entered the resort owned by the Dandel family. At the gate, Willow showed their identification and requested someone named Castro. A guard left and quickly returned with a tall, intimidating man in a servant's uniform. Willow greeted him casually. Castro, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, glanced over Alicia. Without a word, he motioned for her to follow. Willow said he'd go report to the head guard, Sarah. Before leaving, he told Alicia not to be nervous. Castro led the way. Alicia walked behind him, silently observing his back. She used appraisal. His stats were high. Suddenly, a steel spike came flying toward her. Alicia dodged it instantly, her dagger already in hand. Castro shrugged. He just wanted checking if Alicia as competent as Willow say. Then he added that no matter how skilled Alicia are, he don't trust slum rats like her. He clearly despised people from the slums, accusing them of being dishonest and selfish. Alicia didn't respond. She just gave him a piercing stare. Castro scoffed and continued walking, eventually showing her a small, shabby hut at the edge of a forest. That place is where Alicia will stay, then turned and left without another word. Alicia entered the dusty shack and immediately started coughing. It was a mess. Even the food Castro had promised wasn't there. She sighed, unpacked what Willow had given her, some supplies and weapons, and told herself she'd have to make do. She scouted the forest, getting a feel for the area. Then she started training, stabbing trees while channeling her magic to boost her combat skill. It used a lot of mana, so she had to be smart about it. Later, she gathered some wood, climbed a tall tree, and tied herself securely up there. It was how she always slept, hidden, safe, and off the ground. That night, she sensed movement. Using her mana to enhance her vision, she spotted something terrifying. A hobgoblin. A strong one. What was it doing here? Then she noticed a servant walking nearby, alone. If she didn't act, that servant would be dead in seconds. Alicia hesitated for only a moment before grabbing the steel spike Castro had thrown earlier. She leapt from the tree and drove it into the hobgoblin with everything she had. At the same time, in the main mansion, Sarah, head of the guards, was searching for a maid named Mina. She was told Mina had gone to check on Alicia. Sarah remembered Willow's request. That must have been the girl he brought. She grew worried. There were rumors of goblins in the forest. She called for Castro and ordered him to investigate with her. Back in the woods, Alicia's attack wasn't enough. The hobgoblin was barely scratched. She quickly switched focus and took out a smaller goblin nearby. The bigger one roared in fury. Alicia assessed the situation. She couldn't win head-on. She started kiting the smaller goblins, drawing them away from the hobgoblin. With the knife Willow gave her, she slashed them down one by one. When one tried to jump her, she blocked with a reinforced magic shield and countered with a clean kill. She remembered goblins had poor night vision. Taking advantage of that, she sneaked up behind a confused one and stabbed it straight in the heart. Then, using her time wisely, she began practicing her knife throwing. One by one, she thinned out the enemy ranks until only the hobgoblin remained. It charged toward her, furious. Alicia, now grinning wildly, ran at it too. She was thrilled to finally get real combat experience. They clashed, dodging, attacking, pushing each other to the limit. Alicia managed to land a knife throw that pierced the hobgoblin's arm. Enraged, it slammed its axe into the ground. Alicia dodged low, threw another blade, but it was deflected. She aimed for its eyes, but she couldn't risk using her full combat skill. It might damage her body. So she retreated into the forest, forming a desperate plan, one that, if it failed, would get her killed. She used a shadow spell, Torn Pure, and vanished into the darkness. The hobgoblin searched wildly, then it spotted her silhouette. It attacked using a combat skill that split the earth itself. Dust flew everywhere. When the dust settled, there was no body. Alicia suddenly appeared beside the monster and stabbed it in the eye, but the hobgoblin managed to smack her away with a brutal punch. She crashed into a tree, blood pouring from her head. She'd used dark magic attribute to make a mannequin version of herself. An illusion. It had fooled the hobgoblin's night vision just long enough. Now, both were badly injured. Alicia couldn't cast spells anymore, but she gripped her dagger tightly, gave a fierce smile, and prepared for the kill. She was going to end this fight. Back in the forest, Sarah and Castro finally find Mina, the servant girl. She's shaken, saying she heard tons of monsters and ran away, but she has no clue what happened to Alicia, who's still out there somewhere. Sarah shoots Castro a fierce look and orders him to take Mina back to the mansion while she goes after Alicia herself. She promises she'll punish Castro later, which immediately makes him pale and guilty. Without wasting a second, Sarah grabs her knives in both hands and bolts into the woods. She can't shake the question. How did Mina survive? From her calculations, the monsters should have caught her already. Sarah stops suddenly, spotting a trail of goblin corpses. Moving slowly, she senses a powerful bloodlust aura, at least a level 3 monster. She notices trees smashed all around, then freezes. There, standing amid the wreckage, is a kid. Nearby, a hobgoblin lies dead. It's Alicia, breathing hard but alive. When she turns and sees Sarah, the woman is stunned but quickly realizes this kid is the one who saved Mina. Alicia collapses from exhaustion, but Sarah catches her just in time, sighs quietly, and rushes her back to the mansion. The next morning, Alicia wakes up in a cozy bed, surprised to find all her wounds healed. Checking her status, she's shocked. Her stats have all gone up, and she's unlocked a new dark magic skill. She never expected it to come so easily. Her mana flows stronger than before. She guesses it's because of the dark magic shard embedded in her, a leftover from the woman who attacked her before, that makes learning dark magic feel natural now. Soon after, Willow pops in with a cheerful greeting carrying delicious food. He praises Alicia for defeating the hobgoblin, their mission, but Alicia handled it herself. Willow smiles, hinting she'll have another task soon. Just then, Sarah walks in, and Alicia notices she's not an ordinary servant. Sarah hands over Alicia's repaired weapons, though the slingshot is sadly broken beyond repair. Sitting calmly beside Alicia, Sarah suggests she train with her and become a combat maid. Weeks pass. On a moving carriage, a young, beautiful woman named Elena, the king's daughter, sits across from Clara, who smiles nervously. Clara recognizes Elena from the game. She's a villain who constantly bullies the heroine, but Elena's attitude is changed once her brother, Prince Evan, starts dating the heroine. The real villains are Clara and another noble sorceress's daughter. The game's first event hasn't started yet, and rumors say the heroine has been found, but Clara doesn't feel any major changes, which is odd. Worse, she's struggling to find a way to kill the heroine. Suddenly, Elena notices Clara's worry and asks what's wrong. Clara forces a smile, but grows more anxious. Outside, the scenery shifts. The mansion appears in the distance as they approach. At the Dallins mansion gate, Elena and Clara are greeted by a line of servants and maids. Clara studies the servants carefully. She spots a boy she recognizes named Sio, the heroine's butler in the game. Turning around, Clara's skin crawls as her eyes widen. One of the pink blonde maids standing right in front of her is the heroine. She's stunned and confused. How could this be? Nervous now, Clara tries to hide it. Elena watches her friend and suspects one maid caught Clara's attention. Smiling, Elena approaches Alicia, compliments her unusual beautiful hair, then tells Clara to make Alicia her personal maid. Elena's smile is sharp as Clara stares, speechless. A few weeks earlier, Alicia was still thinking about Sarah's offer. When they first met, Alicia introduced herself and mentioned her age. Willow was shocked. He had no idea Alicia was only 7. Feeling a bit guilty, he admitted he might have trained her too harshly without realizing it. Alicia stayed quiet, her gaze fixed on Sarah. Sarah smiled gently, telling her she wouldn't force her into anything, but she had a feeling Alicia would want to get stronger, and she was right. Alicia accepted the offer, and they shook hands, sealing the deal. From that moment on, Alicia officially became Sarah's personal student. But since Sarah was a combat maid, Alicia wasn't just learning how to fight. She also had to study manners, etiquette, and all the proper duties of a maid. That's where Mina came in. She was assigned to help Alicia with all the maid work. Mina happily welcomed her and told Alicia she would start tomorrow, so she'd better get ready. Mina took Alicia to the bath and helped her clean up. While they chatted, Alicia learned a few new maid terms. Afterward, they headed to the dressing room, where Mina helped her into a proper maid uniform. When she looked in the mirror, Alicia barely recognized herself. She no longer looked like a girl from the slums. There were tons of rules and formalities to learn, from table manners to cooking. Thankfully, Alicia already knew some basics. They trained until late at night, and when it was finally time to rest, Alicia quietly removed her clothes and didn't sleep on the bed. Instead, she curled up in a corner, staying alert as always. The next morning, Alicia woke before sunrise. She put on her maid outfit and started thinking about where she could hide her weapons. With no other choice, she took off her underwear and stashed her weapons somewhere they wouldn't be seen. She then climbed out the window and went to the forest. Alicia scaled a tall tree and hid her old belongings there, things that might still be useful. On her way back, she passed through the quiet backyard. Suddenly, she felt a presence. Spinning around, she spotted a boy stepping out from behind a tree. He smiled and greeted her, saying he had been testing if Alicia would notice him. As he walked closer, it became clear. He wasn't thrilled that Sarah had personally chosen Alicia as her student. Without warning, he lunged at her. Alicia didn't have time to react as he flipped up her skirt, revealing the weapon strapped to her bare thighs. The boy froze, stunned, realizing she wasn't wearing any underwear. His face turned bright red. In the next instant, Alicia delivered a sharp kick to his stomach, sending him flying. She quickly drew her dagger, ready for a fight. The boy, now flustered and covering his face in embarrassment, kept apologizing for his prank. Alicia stared at him in disbelief. Just then, Sarah arrived. The boy called her as Mom. Sighing in annoyance, Sarah apologized on his behalf and introduced him as Seo. She explained that Seo would be Alicia's sparring partner for morning training sessions. After checking Alicia's magic affinities, Sarah gave her a new assignment: study advanced healing magic. Sao proudly boasted that he could use wind magic. Alicia wasn't interested at first, but when she noticed how disappointed Sao looked, she agreed to learn it too. That made him genuinely happy, and he promised to teach her properly. Before leaving, Sarah handed Alicia a set of assassin's knives, asking her to keep them hidden and safe. Alicia accepted them, planning to strap them under her skirt along with her black dagger. Sao started teaching Alicia how to fight hand-to-hand, focusing especially on kicks, a skill Alicia wasn't good at yet. She lost to him several times during practice, often falling over as she tried to get the hang of it. After hours of training, Sarah called them over. She used her cleanse magic, instantly cleaning Alicia's body. It was an advanced form of light magic, one Alicia had never seen before. Of course, Alicia was curious and wanted to learn more, though it would probably take quite a bit of time. Then, Sarah handed her a small pouch. It contained a fine poison powder in a tiny dose. Sarah told Alicia to drink a little every morning to slowly build up her resistance. After that, they headed to the kitchen for breakfast. Seo looked genuinely happy to finally have a proper training partner, especially after everyone else had run away. As they eat, Alicia glared sharply at every maid who passed by. Seo gently scolded her, but Alicia was simply trying to stay cautious. Soon, they parted ways. Seo had his own training to become a butler and promised to teach Alicia etiquette later. Alicia spent the entire day doing endless laundry with Mina, washing clothes and bed sheets non-stop. Sometimes she crossed paths with Castro in the hallway. They'd briefly lock eyes. He always looked like he wanted to say something, but in the end, he just walked away. Sarah explained that Castro still felt guilty about what had happened, but Alicia barely even remembered him at this point. In the afternoons, Alicia studied reading and general knowledge with Sarah. At night, she would return to the forest, sit on a tree branch, and practice her darkness magic. She even started experimenting, like making small mannequins out of shadows. There were still many kinds of magic she wanted to learn, especially tricks to outsmart her enemies. Looking up at the night sky, Alicia would quietly decide to head back. Her daily routine stayed the same and repeated itself. The only difference was that she picked up sewing in her free time. She accidentally pricked her finger with a needle, not because she didn't know how, but because she'd been feeling distracted these past few days. The royal princess's visit was getting closer. Jumping to the present, it was the day Elena requested Alicia to become her personal maid. Sarah initially refused since Alicia was still in training, but Elena insisted. Eventually, Sarah called Alicia forward. Alicia politely introduced herself just as she had been taught. She quietly assessed Elena's strength. Her mana was impressive for a girl her age. Clara, meanwhile, looked nervous and restless, avoiding Alicia's gaze. Elena invited Alicia to join her in the garden. The other maids clearly didn't like her, but Elena just chuckled, amused that Alicia didn't seem to care. Elena even praised her for being so bold and unbothered. Alicia accepted the compliment politely. She honestly had no idea why Elena chose her, knowing she probably couldn't serve her properly. Besides, Clara kept her distance, so Alicia didn't know much about her either. Alicia continued to accompany Elena at the mansion for several days. Surprisingly, Elena was pretty open with her, often sharing stories about her family and her worries. Alicia never really responded, but Elena didn't seem to mind. One day, Elena asked her to drop the formal speech when they were alone, but Alicia never did. All Alicia really knew was that Elena had been strictly trained by her mother since birth. Maybe the princess had been struggling all this time, just like Alicia. One afternoon, Elena called her over to the balcony. Alicia stood there quietly, realizing that Elena wasn't trying to use her. Moments like these, calm, simple. Alicia secretly found them comforting. The next day, they went to the city by carriage. Elena wanted to go shopping. She even offered to buy Alicia something, but Alicia refused. Elena laughed, saying she figured Alicia was the type to get what she wanted on her own anyway. They arrived at a clothing store where they were warmly welcomed. 3 shop staff were inside, along with several guards, maids, and butlers, including Alicia, of course, who were all there to guard Elena closely. As Alicia scanned the area, she noticed something off. One of the maids had suddenly disappeared. A bad feeling crept over her. She quickly moved toward the fitting room, but was stopped by one of the guards. Alicia shouted that she couldn't sense Elena's presence and that there was a strange smell coming from behind the door. One of the maids knocked, but there was no response. In a panic, they broke the door open. Inside, all the maids had collapsed, the air thick with the sharp scent of chemicals. Alicia anxiously peeked inside, heart pounding. They soon discovered a hole in the floor. Without hesitation, Alicia offered to check it out and swiftly jumped down. Below, she found the missing maid, trembling with fear. The maid confessed that someone had offered her money in exchange for information. Alicia clicked her tongue in frustration and ran off, leaving the crying maid behind. She had to save Elena. There was no time to waste. As Alicia navigated the basement, she spotted a small crack in the wall, probably carved out by an earth mage from the enemy's side. Following the path, she found an exit and sent someone nearby. Quickly, she used the touch spell to trick the man into thinking someone had tapped him. As he turned around, confused, Alicia leaped out and drove her knife into his back, slamming him to the ground. With her blade pressed to his throat, she demanded to know where Elena had been taken. At first, the man stubbornly kept his mouth shut, but Alicia kept stabbing and torturing him until he finally broke. Desperate, he revealed the kidnapper's direction and swore he was telling the truth, begging for mercy. Alicia didn't kill him. Instead, she knocked him out, figuring Sarah could squeeze more information out of him later. She dashed out the door, but found nothing in sight. Dropping to the ground, she focused her mana to track footprints, just as Willow had taught her. She quickly picked up the trail and sprinted after it. While running, Alicia recalled what Sarah once told her about the kingdom's political mess. It seemed Elena's kidnapping was tied to that. Anxiety crept in. What if Elena was already dead? What if the kidnappers were way stronger than her? She didn't even know why she was risking so much to save her, but deep down she knew she had come to see Elena as a friend. Alicia knew that Elena was never treated like a child. She had always carried the crushing weight of being the future queen. Alicia could relate. That's why, through their difficult journey together, Alicia saw Elena as a kindred spirit. Saving her wasn't just a mission anymore. It mattered. Meanwhile, Elena, still unconscious, was trapped in a painful dream. In it, she relived her harsh upbringing. Forbidden to cry, forced to be strong, never allowed to play or experience warmth. That brutal education made her a rare prodigy, mastering 4 elemental magics at a young age, but at a steep price. Her body became weak, her physical endurance limited, and there was a chance she'd never bear children. Eventually, her mother gave up on her and stopped pushing her toward the throne. In those lonely days, only her stepbrother, Erwan, the son of the first queen, stayed by her side. Everyone said Elena depended on Erwan too much, but in truth, she clung to him on purpose. She knew Erwan was too fragile to become the next king, and if the kingdom chose him, it would fall apart. Secretly, Elena kept studying, determined to guide him and protect the kingdom she loved. That was the burden she chose to bear alone. But now, she was powerless. Rough hands tossed her into a cart. Slowly, Elena opened her eyes, still weak. A woman nearby smirked and praised her for waking up so soon. She wasn't here to kill Elena, just following someone else's orders. Elena guessed she was a bandit. The woman grinned as an answer. She approached, ready to force more poison on Elena. Helpless and unable to cast a spell, Elena could only glare at her in fury. The woman's grin widened as she reached for Elena, until suddenly 2 knives flew at her. The bandit quickly deflected them, a cocky smile still on her face. She laughed, clearly amused by the challenge. She didn't expect anyone would come to save Elena this quickly. Elena's eyes widened, desperately looking around to see who had come. The poison had finally worn off her tongue, and with teary relief she shouted. Alicia had arrived just in time to save her. Elena's vacation was actually her father's idea. He ordered her to take a break. They chose the Dandel estate because Clara, the lady of the house, was her close cousin. But when Elena arrived, she noticed Clara had changed. Her gaze had grown distant, guarded. Elena also caught Clara giving suspicious looks to one particular maid. When Elena first saw Alicia, she was struck by her resemblance to the former queen. Alicia's steady eyes seemed to say she could handle anything. She always stayed calm, always kept watch. Sometimes she would even move instinctively to protect Elena, just like the rumored combat maids. What made Elena happiest was that Alicia never looked at her with envy. For once, it felt like she had a true ally in this world, a friend to fight alongside her, and right now, Alicia was her only hope. The bandit woman laughed again, this time directly at Alicia. Elena quickly warned her to be careful. She used poison. Alicia activated her appraisal skill to scan the bandit's power level. Shockingly, she was even stronger than Castro. Alicia tried to negotiate, but the bandit wasn't interested. Instead, she threw a high-speed dagger straight at her. Alicia could see the earth-colored elemental mana surrounding that woman. In an instant, bullets of earth shot up from beneath her feet. Alicia dodged as best as she could, pulling back to maintain distance. The bandit was impressed that Alicia could avoid all of it, though Alicia actually felt pretty cornered. Just from that exchange, she knew this opponent was no joke. Worse, the woman's personality was clearly twisted and perverse. Still, that woman was kind enough to start a countdown for their duel. When the fight began, their weapons clashed fiercely. Alicia struggled to block her attacks, while her enemy clearly enjoyed herself. Suddenly, the bandit cast a dust spell, blinding Alicia's vision. Unable to see, Alicia couldn't dodge the incoming kick. It sent her crashing a good distance away. Alicia heard panicked call from Elena, but she quickly pushed herself back up. Alicia shut her eyes, focusing. Out of nowhere, a deep cut appeared on the bandit's cheek. The woman was confused. Then more cuts followed. It was Alicia's new weapon in action. A thin, nearly invisible wire, inspired by her slingshot but easier to control. The bandit's frustration grew. She ripped off her disguise, revealing her true appearance, and started suspecting Alicia wasn't just some ordinary kid. Alicia introduced herself briefly, a little playfully, but the key point was clear. She was a combat maid. The bandit's interest deepened, and she laughed in excitement. Suddenly, a knife flew toward Elena. She'd been caught trying to cast a spell. The bandit warned her not to pull any tricks. Alicia immediately threw one of her daggers to keep the woman from getting closer to Elena. The bandit then drew a poisoned dagger and charged at Alicia, ready to kill. She cast a snare spell, trapping Alicia and knocking her down. Before Alicia could react, she launched a fast double stab attack. The dagger slashed Alicia's leg, tearing through her long skirt. Fortunately, the skirt had actually blocked the enemy's view, a trick Alicia learned from Sarah's weeks of training. It was Alicia's chance to strike back. She thrust her dagger fiercely, but the bandit dodged. Alicia quickly went for another angle, but her enemy kicked her hard in the back, forcing her to retreat. Alicia saw the earth-colored mana forming again. That woman was gathering a huge amount of it. Alicia swung her thread weapon one more time, but the bandit had already activated a new skill. Her skin turned as hard as stone. Alicia's pendulum attacks no longer worked. It was clear. Her enemy was now using a mana-based armor. As the woman began chanting another spell, Alicia scrambled to move, but stone bullets rained down on her in rapid fire. She charged at Alicia, ready to stab her. Alicia still had one secret weapon left, but she knew it wasn't the right time to use it yet. She kept swinging her pendulum, trying to fight back, but it was useless. The next moment, the bandit's poisoned blade slashed her. Alicia gasped. The pain was intense. Just one cut, and her breathing instantly became tight and heavy. Without mercy, the woman kicked Alicia hard and drove her knife deep into Alicia's stomach. Alicia's eyes widened and she screamed. The pain was unbearable. Unlike anything she had ever felt before, she forced herself to stay conscious. Her eyes burned with determination. She had another plan. Muttering her final spell, Alicia cast a powerful illusion. Suddenly, the bandit felt a strange tickling sensation, which quickly turned into excruciating pain. The woman shrieked. Alicia had trapped her in an illusion that made her feel exactly the same pain Alicia was experiencing. It didn't cause real injuries, but it was more than enough to paralyze her. Alicia staggered closer and, with all her remaining strength, wrapped a thin thread around the woman's neck. She whispered coldly for her enemy to just die. Pouring every last drop of mana into the thread, Alicia strangled her with everything she had. Less than a minute later, the woman's neck snapped. Alicia collapsed, coughing weakly. The poison was spreading, and her wound was too deep. She didn't have enough time or strength to cast a healing spell. She was on the verge of passing out. Elena, still half paralyzed, crawled toward her, desperate to help. She pressed on Alicia's wound, panicking. She could heal her, but only if she knew what poison was used. Alicia weakly identified it for her. Elena was shocked by Alicia's knowledge, but there was no time to be amazed. Alicia begged her to hurry. Elena cast the healing spell, Treat, then even tried a level 2 healing spell, but it wasn't enough. She needed to know exactly which organs were damaged to heal them properly. Her hands trembling, Elena took a huge risk. She used the Feel spell to sense Alicia's insides, searching for the injuries by following the flow of mana, then focused all her healing spells there. Luckily, her gamble worked, but by then, Alicia had already lost consciousness. When Alicia finally woke up, her head was spinning. The first thing she saw was Willow's face. She had been unconscious for 3 days, and everyone had been terribly worried about her. It turned out the bandit woman was a notorious kidnapper among the nobles. Sarah scolded Alicia for being reckless, but also praised her for her incredible skills. Since that day, Alicia hadn't seen Elena again. After all, she was just a maid. Meeting the princess wasn't something that could happen so easily. One day, Sarah walked into Alicia's room and handed her a letter. That night, on Elena's last day at Dandel's mansion, Alicia secretly climbed up to her balcony. Moving silently, she approached and bowed. It was Elena who had called her there through the letter. Elena welcomed her with a big smile and asked Alicia to come closer. First, she thanked Alicia sincerely. After a soft laugh, her tone turned serious. Staring straight into Alicia's eyes, she asked who she really was. Alicia gave her a vague answer, but Elena suddenly offered her a position to work directly for her. Alicia immediately turned her down. She didn't serve anyone, she was just an adventurer. For a moment, there was silence. Elena quietly admitted that their status was worlds apart. They couldn't just be casual friends. She seemed like she wanted to say something more, but Alicia cut her off. "We're the same kind," Alicia said. Elena was stunned for a second, but she understood what Alicia meant. She smiled, then solemnly promised to use all her power as a princess to be Alicia's truest ally in the future. Alicia returned her gaze and made her own vow. To kill anyone Elena asked her to, even if that person was a king. It was a powerful promise between two kindred spirits under the moonlight. Elena's heart felt lighter. She asked Alicia to reveal her real name. Alicia smiled. She knew Elena had figured out that Aria wasn't her true name. Without hesitation, Alicia told her. Elena gave a small nod. She would remember that name forever. The two parted on good terms. Alicia didn't know if they would ever meet again, but she was sure of one thing. Their vows and the harsh paths they'd walk would always live in their hearts. After Elena returned to the royal capital, Alicia thought her mission was over, but suddenly, the head butler called her for another assignment. That same evening, Alicia set off for her next mission. The head butler standing in front of her was named Grave. His power level was technically lower than Willow's, but Arya could sense something else. An aura that was calm, controlled, and definitely not to be underestimated. Grave explained her new mission. She'd go undercover as a maid in a noble household and quietly resolve whatever problem was brewing there. She had 1 month to do it. This wasn't just any mission, it was a test of Alicia's skill and adaptability, and if she failed, the worst-case scenario was that one of the noble's children might die. Alicia headed out to the courtyard and spotted Willow there. He greeted her with a cigarette in his hand. She told him she was about to pack for her mission, so this was their goodbye. For now, Willow stopped her, saying their farewell felt way too casual, but Alicia just smiled. She wasn't worried. They could meet again once the mission was over. Willow laughed at how chill she was. The two of them shared a light moment, exchanged smiles and well wishes, and then Mina appeared with Alicia's suitcase, wishing her safety on the road. Just as Alicia reached the mansion gates, Sio called out to her. He told her that when he grew up, he'd go to the capital too, and that he'd find her there. He shyly waved her off, cheeks red. Alicia gave him a small smile. It felt like having a little brother. Then, without looking back, she left. Once she arrived in the capital, Alicia planned to shop for food and clothes. She thought about disguising herself as a boy again, but Sio and Sarah had forbidden it. So instead, she focused on getting what she needed. In the distance, she caught sight of the royal castle and wondered, could Clara be living there? But something about Clara's strange behavior made Alicia suspicious. She also reminded herself to stay cautious of Elena. There was always the chance they could become enemies down the line. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Melrose was in discussion with Haas, the priest who'd been sent to investigate earlier. Haas reported that the girl, who he suspected might be Alicia, seemed to have clear memories of her mother. But he also admitted something felt off. Her behavior was nothing like her mother's, And her hair wasn't even the same pink blonde color. Melrose thought about it. It was strange. If the girl had the family crest ring, her identity should be obvious. Sarah had also once brought back a strand of hair from a child she'd trained, a rare pink blonde. But the stories about this girl being an incredible fighter? That didn't match someone from a regular background. Still, Melrose ordered Haas to keep watching the orphanage, while he personally kept an eye on the girl Sarah mentioned. He was already thinking about sending someone to get close to her. Back to Alicia. After a long journey, she finally arrived at the barony of Saylace. Rumor had it that a monster had started appearing there about 6 months ago. Some people said it was human. Others claimed it only came out at night, always showing up in the bedrooms of noble children and leaving behind blood. Oddly enough, it didn't seem to be targeting the lady of the house. Alicia tried to dig up more information, but it was all gossip and nonsense. Some even said the monster came out of the water. Deciding to investigate further, she ventured into the forest. At the far end, she knew there was a witch, the master of the woman who had once attacked her. Alicia wanted to return a botany book to her. As evening fell, Alicia found a tree to rest under for a moment. She checked her status. There had been a lot of improvement, but it still wasn't enough. Every fight still felt like a struggle. She had gained useful skills and tricks over time, but knew she needed to keep sharpening them if she wanted to survive what lay ahead. The next day, Alicia headed to a noble's mansion. As soon as she arrived, she was led to a room where she politely greeted a man, Baron of the house. He had dark hair and seemed a little unsure of her at first, but he quickly introduced Alicia to his daughter. A girl who resembled the Baron entered, Maria. She looked nervous as she greeted Alicia. Alicia could tell why. She was from Dandal, a prestigious noble household, and that made others uneasy around her. Suddenly, a young boy shouted at Alicia, accusing her of scaring his sister. He threatened to beat her up if she hurt Maria. Alicia didn't bother taking him seriously, and instead told him to show her where the monster had appeared. The boy was stunned by her bluntness and chased after her, offended that she was giving him orders. But Alicia cornered him against a wall, stared him down, and asked if he didn't care about saving Maria. She made it clear. He was going to cooperate whether he liked it or not. The boy gave in. As they walked, he introduced himself as Rhodey. He explained that even though they had already called a mage, the monster still hadn't been caught. What scared him most was the increasing trail of blood leading closer to Maria's room. The tracks looked like human hands, and that freaked him out. Alicia thought for a moment. There was leftover mana in the tracks. Strong mana, the kind only high-level magicians could leave behind. She asked about the family's magic affinity. Rhodey said his father used wind magic, and his mother had water magic, but he himself hadn't awakened his powers yet. Hearing that, Alicia made a mental note to investigate the town later. 5 days passed. While Alicia was doing maid chores around the mansion, Maria came up to her and thanked her for looking into the monster problem. Rhodey must have told her. Alicia couldn't help noticing that all the boys she'd met lately acted the same way as Rhodey. Then Maria suddenly lowered her head, looking sad. She don't know if she can be saved, her hands trembling. Alicia gently tried to calm her down. Maria sighed and started to pray. That night, Alicia went outside to check the small river beside the mansion. Half a year ago, the city had been hit by a flood. To protect it, a magical barrier had been used to block spirit water. Alicia suspected that the spirit water had been enraged ever since. Maria's magical powers hadn't awakened yet, so no one noticed anything strange. But Alicia could see elemental mana, and Maria's water attribute mana was an intense ultramarine color. Every day, the mansion grew more saturated with water mana. It made sense. The trapped spirit water was likely drawn to Maria as a source of power. Now that it was the rainy season, the monster had probably grown desperate. Alicia stood by the river, hoping to lure the monster out. And sure enough, an ugly, human-shaped figure emerged from the shadows. It was a mad water spirit that had possessed a drowned human body to keep itself from evaporating. Though low-ranking for a spirit, it was still powerful and troublesome to fight. Alicia ran and hid behind a tree as it attacked. She crafted sharp weapons with earth-enhancing magic and hurled them at the spirit, but it dodged with ease. Physical attacks couldn't hurt spirits. Their bodies weren't fully real. The only way to beat it was with elemental magic that countered its type. So Alicia kept chipping away at its mana using earth and hardening spells, slowly draining its power. She could see its strength weakening, but suddenly it opened its mouth and launched a massive ball of water straight at her. The blast caught her off guard. She crashed to the ground, her legs caught in the mud. The monster prepared to strike again, but Alicia quickly used magic to break free just in time, barely dodging the next attack. She stood up and tore her skirt for better mobility. A crowd started to gather from all the noise, which made Alicia click her tongue in frustration. Things were getting messy. Without wasting time, she cast a water spell to lure the monster away, then leapt over the fence with the spirit close behind. Rhodey shouted her name, but Alicia only glanced back briefly before taking off. She landed on a rooftop, pulled out a mana recovery potion, and quickly downed it. Time to fight. Spotting the monster again, Alicia used an amplification spell on a piece of cloth and threw it at the creature. The spirit, irritated by the pain, retaliated with another water ball. Alicia couldn't read the spirit's emotions, but she was ready to go all out. The water ball shot toward her. This time, she ducked behind a chimney just in time. The water splashed and ran off the roof easily, but her earth-made weapon had melted into mud. Fortunately, she still had one trick left, a special pendulum knife made just for this kind of fight. It was made of clay, but reinforced several times over. Alicia drew it from her pocket and charged, slashing at the monster. Suddenly, a burst of lightning cut through the air. Blades of thunder sliced the water spirit apart in an instant. Alicia was stunned as the monster vanished into mist. Lowering her weapon, she turned sharply to face the figure who'd intervened. It was Grave, holding a lightning-charged sword. Alicia didn't get the sense he was there to help. In fact, he pointed his blade at her and asked coldly, "Who are you really?" Grave wasn't from Claydale originally. He was the son of a patriotic priest who'd been murdered by corrupt politicians. After escaping with his mother, she too passed away young. Orphaned and bitter, Grave harbored a deep hatred for the selfish nobles responsible for their deaths. He survived the streets alone until he ran into Hoss, an old friend of his father. Hoss took him in, and Grave became part of Claydale. Grave didn't resent Hoss. He was a good noble. If only the royal family used their power properly, maybe the people wouldn't suffer so much. That's why in Grave's eyes, anyone who threatens the kingdom's stability is an enemy. Useless princes, two-faced princesses, anyone who could spark unrest. He would eliminate them all to keep peace. Alicia stayed calm on the surface, even as Grave grilled her. She was just a kid brought in by Willow, a girl who somehow defeated goblins and fought off bandits. How did she get that kind of power? Why nobles interested in her? What was she hiding? Grave's glare sharpened. Alicia took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. The last thing she afraid was for him to discover too much, especially about her mother's ring. Grave narrowed his eyes and demanded she hand over whatever she was hiding so he could inspect it. Panic flared in Alicia and she cast a pain spell, catching him off guard for a moment, but Grave was strong. He didn't go down easy. Alicia watched as he suddenly hurled a small knife at her. She dodged, just barely avoiding his follow-up slash. That reaction confirmed his suspicions. This girl had ties to the nobility, and that made her dangerous. Grave coldly declared that he would destroy anything that threatened the kingdom's peace, even Elena. That hit Alicia like a lightning strike. So that's why Elena's security was always so weak, why she was always in danger. Anger surged inside her. She glared fiercely at Grave, now seeing him in a whole new light. Alicia threw one of her daggers. Grave deflected it with ease. She launched a second, but he dodged that too. It wasn't meant to hit. It was just a distraction so Alicia could back off and create some distance. In the next second, she tossed a small pouch that exploded into a cloud of toxic smoke. Grave, unfazed, kept chasing her with his nose covered. Then came another pouch, this one filled with a stimulant powder. Grave staggered as it messed with his senses, making it hard for him to see. Alicia took that chance to leap into the street and make a run for it. But Grave was right behind her again, fast as ever. She pulled out her pendulum and used a bit of magic to create a makeshift rope. It let her run along the side of a wall and vault up onto a rooftop. Still, she was struggling. Grave was simply too strong for her to handle right now, and he didn't let up, throwing daggers her way as he closed in. Eventually, Alicia found herself cornered at the edge of the harbor. Grave demanded her surrender. Alicia, breathing hard, held a dagger toward him and declared she wouldn't die by his hands. Then, without warning, she turned and dove into the raging sea. Grave was stunned. He stood there thinking she'd chosen to end her own life. There was no way anyone could survive waters like that. He sighed. He had no intention of going back to the Dandal mansion. Sarah would get suspicious, and honestly, he was sick of serving nobles. But then something made him pause. He looked back at the turbulent waters. Maybe she didn't die. And if she was alive, he wouldn't mind meeting her again for a rematch. After that day, the sea monster attacks suddenly stopped. People said the creature must have eaten Alicia and then left. But deep beneath the waves, Alicia had survived. Barely. She was furious. All this happened because she was a suspect with no real evidence. And now, she feared Elena might get hurt too. That thought lit a fire of rage in Alicia's heart, especially toward Grave. Meanwhile, in the royal palace, Clara looked troubled. Her relationship with Elena had gone sour. It all started when Clara told her that Alicia was presumed dead, lost at sea. At first, Clara had felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. She had offered her condolences without really thinking, but Elena had snapped, furious, refusing to believe Alicia was gone. Since then, Elena had been ignoring her completely. Clara's mother had scolded her, telling her to fix things with Elena. But that wasn't the reason Clara came to the palace today. In a quiet chamber, 3 girls had gathered, the potential candidates to become queen. These girls would be evaluated until the prince graduated from the academy. The problem was, if the prince fell in love with someone else, like how the last king married a viscount's daughter, their lives could get very complicated. Still, for the sake of politics, Clara had to keep her relationships smooth. Across from her, a graceful woman named Patricia smiled politely. In the game, Patricia wasn't a major character, so Clara didn't see her as a threat. But there was someone else in the room who did make her nervous, the girl standing silently by the window. The daughter of a powerful mage noble, this woman had 6 elemental affinities and massive mana. In the game, she was the final boss, the one the heroine had to face at the very end. Clara shivered when their eyes met. The girl had long, jet-black hair and a cold smile. Carla Lester, the most wicked villainess in the game. Her smile wasn't friendly. It was the kind that spelled danger. Back to Alicia, now deeper into the wilderness. She moved through cliffs and caves wrapped in a cloak, tossing a magic stone to bait a cave spider monster. The creature lashed out, firing webs in rage. Alicia used her cloak to shield herself, leapt into the air, and stabbed the beast with her dagger, killing it. Dragging the carcass, she returned to a remote house. As she stepped inside, someone greeted her. Alicia's appearance had changed. She looked older, more mature. Her hair was longer, her aura stronger. Her power level had doubled since that fateful day at the harbor. The one Alicia called Master was a dark elf named Sajura. She praised her for finishing the hunt quickly, though she did complain a little that Alicia didn't kill the monster more cleanly. Still, she patted her head. Alicia had managed to take down a level 3 monster after all. It had been 4 months since Alicia started living with Sajura. The seasons had changed. and she had just turned 9. Before that, she'd been fighting to survive every single day. After a long journey, she finally arrived at the dark elf's home. She knocked on the door and slowly pushed it open, just in time to dodge a dagger that flew past her and struck the wall. Sajura was furious. She hated strangers opening her door, but Alicia calmly pulled out a botany book and said she'd come to return it. Sajura went quiet for a moment. She thought Alicia must be friends with her runaway student, the idiot who'd stolen the book, but Alicia admitted she'd killed that girl a long time ago. Without even looking at her, Sajura told her to sell the book and get lost. But Alicia didn't move. She wanted to learn magic from her. Sajura firmly told her to leave. There was no point in getting involved with someone like her. Alicia asked if it was because she was a demon. At that, Sajura gave her a sharp glare, her dark aura swirling around her. She looked truly angry now, thinking maybe that runaway student had said something about her. But Alicia stood her ground. She wasn't afraid. She still wanted to learn from Sajura. That's when Sajura finally stopped. She was surprised the girl wasn't even slightly scared of her. Then she told Alicia to sit down and share her story. So Alicia did. She told him everything, about how she knew this world was a game and the fate she was meant to face. After listening, Sajura asked her to clean out a spare room to stay in. Then Sajura removed her cloak and smiled faintly. She'd decided. She would take Alicia in as her student. Back to the present, Sajura was teaching Alicia how to dissect a spider monster. Alicia add a few drops of her blood, stir up the guts. It looked like they was preparing to create some kind of magic tool. But before continuing, she suggested they eat lunch first. Sajura grumbled when she found out Alicia had cooked spider meat again. She sighed and muttered that she'd need to teach that girl about proper food choices one of these days. After lunch, they sparred. Sajura fired off a quick fire arrow. Alicia blocked it with a magic shield. But Sajura warned her she was using too much mana. Her second shield shattered. It wasn't stable enough. Alicia had only recently learned how to form shields thanks to Sajura's training. She tried again, this time adding a light element to the shield. It held up against a level 1 spell's physical impact. Suddenly, Sajura stopped. She looked like she was in pain, then told Alicia to keep training on her own and left, reminding her to refresh the disguise spell on her hair. Sajura had taught her how to use the spell so she wouldn't have to keep covering up her blonde pink hair with ashes. That night, Sajura talked a little about her old student. That woman had shown up when she was 16, bold, disrespectful, and demanding that Sajura teach her magic. She didn't really know why she agreed. Maybe she was just being foolish. Even though that woman lacked talent and got bored easily, she had trained seriously. It took her forever to learn just one element, and in the end, she gave up and became an adventurer. Still, it was surprising that she'd managed to create the stone that gave Alicia her current abilities. Maybe she had some hidden talent after all. Sajura seemed a little regretful that her student had chosen the wrong path. After that, she said goodnight and left Alicia to her thoughts. That night, when Sajura came to check on Alicia, she smiled softly and pulled the girl's blanket up. In her sleep, Alicia unconsciously grabbed Sajura's hand. Deep down, she trusted her master just like she once trusted Elena. A week later, Alicia finally completed something she had been working on for a while. A pendulum crafted from spider monster parts, laced with magical thread and hidden weapons. Both of them smiled, proud of the result. Outside Sajura's home, a man in a cloak stood quietly watching. He looked mysterious. The pendulum wasn't just any weapon. It took 4 months to gather the materials. The threads were soaked in Alicia's mana and blood, making it both powerful and uniquely hers. Sensing someone's presence nearby, Sajura told Alicia to hide, and she did so without question. The man's ability to mask his aura was impressive. They didn't notice him until he was right there. When he stepped inside, he greeted Sajura with a bow and called her master. He introduced himself as Dino, but Sajura didn't look pleased to see him. In fact, she looked annoyed. She refused to acknowledge him as her student. Dino just laughed it off. He hadn't come just to visit. He brought a request from the Assassin Guild. The target was too annoying for their guild, and believed only Sajura, the infamous war demon, had the skill to take them down quickly. Dino even hinted that if the kingdom found out Sajura was still alive, it could shake things up. Then, he casually asked who was hiding inside the house. Clearly he'd sensed Alicia. He smirked and teased Sajura for taking on a new student. Sajura snapped at him, warning him to back off. The tension between them was intense. Alicia quickly realized what Dino was doing. He was threatening Sajura. No matter how strong she was, Sajura couldn't afford to go up against the entire organization in her current state. Cornered, Sajura reluctantly agreed to the job, but only on the condition that this would be the last time she'd help them. But before the conversation could go any further, Alicia stepped out of hiding. Both Sajura and Dino were caught off guard. Sajura told her to stay out of it, but Alicia knew her master wasn't in fighting shape anymore. She suggested going in her place. Of course, Sajura refused. The target was an adventurer ranked level 4, but Alicia stood her ground, saying she would get stronger and prove herself. Dino looked intrigued. "You really think you can kill someone?" he asked. Alicia didn't hesitate. "If they're the enemy, I won't hold back." Their eyes locked, sharp and unflinching. Dino chuckled and clapped his hands. Apparently, Alicia left a strong first impression. As someone from the Assassin Guild, killing was part of the job, and Alicia had just shown she understood that. He handed her a piece of paper with an address on it, the location of his guild. With that, Dino said his goodbyes and left. Sajura stared at Alicia in silence for a moment, then sighed and went back inside. Later, as Alicia packed her gear, she found Sajura waiting at the table. Her master smiled and said she wouldn't stop her. She respected Alicia's choice, as a fighter and as a human. Then she gestured to the seat across from her and said to, "Sit down for a bit." Sajura finally opened up about her past. As a dark elf, she had faced heavy racism all her life. She grew up on the battlefield, fighting humans and monsters alike, earning the nickname War Demon. Her parents died in the war, and all she ever knew was fighting, killing, and surviving. Life felt empty, meaningless. Even so, she once had something precious, a younger sibling. To protect them, Sajura faked her own death and left the child with a proper family, choosing to live in solitude. That was 50 years ago. But even after all that time, society still wouldn't accept her because of her race. Eventually, she joined a shady assassin guild, where she met Dino, the son of the guild's leader. Then Sajura told Alicia something crucial. Her strength didn't come from experience alone, but from something more dangerous: mana stones. Sajura possessed 4 elemental affinities, but using them came at a cost. It shortened her lifespan. Some nobles even forced this power onto their children. Alicia was reminded of Elena, whose health also declined because of this. Sajura warned her, if she ever find a mana stone in a dungeon, don't get greedy, stay calm, and think. Before ending their talk, Sajura handed Alicia a gift, the very armor and weapon she once used in battle, forged from mana steel. Alicia could use them from now on. As a final gesture, Sajura braided her hair and asked her to keep on living. Alicia smiled, touched by her words. That night, as Alicia left Sajura's house, a man hidden in the trees watched her. He'd been assigned to keep an eye on her, but he seemed doubtful. Alicia looked way too young. Suddenly, she vanished from his senses. Just as he tried to find her, her presence reappeared, but farther away, and then a pendulum snared his neck, yanking him to the ground. Before he could react, Alicia slit his throat. She figured Dino must have placed a spy on her. Maybe he wanted to trap Sajura by keeping Alicia in the guild. Tossing the corpse aside, Alicia made a decision. From now on, the entire Assassin Guild would be her enemy. But first, she had one last thing to finish. She returned to the Baron's estate, hoping to lure something out. Just as she suspected, the water spirit wasn't gone. It reappeared, this time in the form of a zombie dog. It looked weaker now. Alicia drew her weapon and chanted a spell over it, As the creature charged and fired a stream of water, Alicia stood her ground. She used a level 2 sword technique, driving a giant enchanted dagger straight through its head. The water spirit exploded into pieces, leaving behind a glowing mana stone. Alicia's level and combat skills went up from the fight. She picked up the stone and tucked it into her cloak. Hiding behind a tree, Alicia watched Maria and Rhodey chatting on a balcony. She gave them a soft smile, and Rhodey, just for a second, seemed to sense her presence. 10 days later, Alicia arrived in Haydale Country. She slipped into a back alley and tossed a coin to a man loitering there. After giving a password, the man stood and led her through the slums to an underground cemetery. He told her to open one of the coffins, which revealed a hidden staircase. Alicia descended and entered a wide underground chamber, where a woman in gothic Lolita clothing, with long black hair, greeted her. She had clearly been expecting Alicia. The dark elf apprentice had finally arrived. Alicia sized up the woman in front of her. Her stats were way higher than her gothic appearance. Sure, Alicia could beat her if she wanted to, but it was her first day here, and she wasn't about to show off just yet. Before things could escalate, Dino stepped in. He walked over to his guildmate and told her to knock it off. Then he introduced her to Alicia. Her name was Keela. Without wasting time, he invited Alicia for a quick tour of the guild. As Alicia and Keela locked eyes, the tension between them was obvious. Dino gave them both a warning. Fighting inside the guild was strictly forbidden. Keela suddenly leapt from her seat with a grin, slashing a short dagger at Alicia. But Alicia dodged with ease and gave Keela a light swipe across the cheek in return. Startled, Keela backed off. Alicia had only acted in self-defense, so Dino let it slide. Keela touched her wounded cheek, furious that her face had been marked. She screamed at Alicia and reached for her weapon again, but Dino shut her down quickly, ordering her to control herself. Keela clicked her tongue in frustration, but obeyed. Dino turned to Alicia next, asking her not to provoke the guild members. Then, he motioned for her to follow him out of the room. Alicia agreed, but she could still feel Keela's hateful glare burning into her back. As they walked down a dim hallway, Alicia asked why the guild felt so empty. Dino explained that only a select few were accepted into this assassin group, each one with a unique skill. Most kept their faces hidden, even within the guild itself. That's when Alicia realized. Even the guild probably didn't know exactly how many members they had. Maybe less than 100, including the freelance assassin who had been tailing her before. She sensed something dangerous nearby and paused for a moment, but stayed quiet and kept walking beside Dino into a private room. Inside, Dino laid out her test mission. The guild wouldn't be responsible for any injuries or deaths. Alicia didn't care. He continued, a man had hired the guild to kill off a group of thieves who murdered his lover. Alicia's job was to eliminate them, clean and silent. No one could know she was involved. The best place for this is the dungeon. Despite it being a test, Dino handed her a small pouch of coins as upfront payment. Alicia checked the amount. It was far too little for such a high-risk job. Probably, the guild was keeping the rest for themselves. She clenched the money tightly. Dino told her to head to the next room to check out any weapons she might need. With a lantern in hand, Alicia stepped inside. The gear there looked underwhelming. A man standing in the doorway greeted her. He introduced himself as Guy. Alicia examined his strength. It was on par with Keela's. Guy seemed friendlier than the others she'd met, but Alicia stayed cautious. He said he'd only come to see who managed to piss off Keela so badly, and that he had a few warnings. Mainly, stay away from 5 people in the guild. There's Sharga, the Berserker, the ancient elven shaman, a shadow user named Radha, of course the maniac, Keela, and finally Goad the Condemned, a monster chained up in a prison cell. Guy explained that whenever Dino needed to do a guild purge, he'd just feed the targets to Goad. That explained why Keela followed Dino's orders so closely. He asked Alicia about her first mission. She gave him a short summary. For some reason, Guy encouraged her and wished her luck. With a friendly smile, he left the room. As he walked down the hallway, Guy started humming a tune until his eyes widened at the sight in front of him. A Catwoman demon stepped out of a dark portal and smiled back at him. It was Radha. The two of them seemed close, hyping each other up for whatever job they had next. Later that night, Alicia left the guild. She didn't plan to stick around. She wasn't strong enough yet to take on the other guild members. Instead, she headed into the forest, determined to sharpen her skills by fighting monsters. As she fought, memories of her master came back, the warmth and kindness she missed. She realized she'd been letting her guard down, getting too comfortable. That needed to stop. She had to get stronger, not just for herself, but to protect the people she cared about, to take control of her fate. This time, Alicia took down a hobgoblin with ease, and she kept fighting through the night. 10 days later, Alicia finally arrived in the city where her client was waiting. But before anything else, she decided to shop for clothes. On her way in, she'd already taken note of the nearest dungeon and scoped out the city's layout. Her first stop was an apothecary. A middle-aged man welcomed her and started preparing her unusual list of ingredients. Curious, he asked what she needed them for. Alicia calmly replied, "Just getting rid of some bugs." The next morning, Alicia headed to a clothing store. She asked the staff to pick out outfits that would suit a young woman, something more feminine and pretty. The shopkeeper brought her a few options and waited while Alicia changed. Her transformation was dramatic. The shopkeeper, amazed at how different she looked, even offered to help style her hair and do her makeup. After some time, Alicia walked out feeling confident and satisfied. Then she went to the Adventurers Guild. The moment she stepped in, all eyes turned to her. Everyone was stunned by her appearance. The receptionist greeted her warmly. Alicia asked to register as an adventurer, claiming she was a level 1 light mage, a perfect match for her sweet and elegant look. The receptionist quickly pulled Alicia aside, scolding her for revealing her magic type so openly. Alicia just smiled and used a healing spell, showing off even more. With no other choice, the receptionist processed her registration and told her to wait. While waiting, Alicia heard someone call her. She turned to see 3 shy teenage boys awkwardly trying to strike up a conversation. They invited her to join their party, but Alicia politely declined. They weren't the ones she was after. Suddenly, 3 older adventurers showed up. They rudely chased the boys off, then turned to Alicia with forced politeness, apologizing for the disturbance. These 3 men offered to protect Alicia from anyone who might bother her. Though it was clear their intentions weren't entirely noble, still, they smoothly invited her to join their party. Alicia studied their faces carefully. These were the targets her client had sent her for. She gave them a small, knowing smile and agreed to join them. Meanwhile, in the royal palace, Melrose, an elder noble, stared intensely at a young boy standing before him, but the boy didn't even flinch. Instead, he smiled politely. It was his grandson, Mihail. Melrose chuckled to himself. Mihail's charm clearly ran in the family. Mihail had come to ask something, but first he brought up a rumor. Someone had found Alicia. Melrose's eyes narrowed. "Where did you hear that?" he asked cautiously. Mihail just smiled. Melrose knew better than to try fooling this kid. He was sharp. He admitted he was still watching the situation closely. Then, shifting the topic, he asked why Mihail had come to see him in the first place. Mihail requested a private moment. Melrose dismissed his butler. Then Mihail spoke. The prince wanted to travel among the people, blending in with commoners to see their daily lives. Melrose was troubled. It was a risky move, especially after the recent kidnapping of the princess. Plus, the prince insisted on only a small number of guards. The danger was too real. Melrose already had suspicions about Graves' past behavior, and the sudden disappearance of the pink-haired maid had him on edge. He knew Hoss, who had raised Grave like a son, probably had no idea what he was really like. Mihail didn't want Oz, Hoss's son, to find out that his father had failed to raise a decent apprentice. To prevent any risks, Mihail offered a solution. He would personally protect the prince, along with a few trusted allies, but for that, he needed Melrose's approval, and extra guards who knew the kingdom's back streets well. Melrose paused, weighing the request. Then something clicked. He rang the palace's mandatory summoning bell. It was time to call in a particular adventurer party, the legendary Rainbow Sword, back to Alicia. She was now sitting inside a horse-drawn carriage with the same 3 men she'd met earlier. As always, she kept that sweet, innocent smile on her face. Earlier, the men had invited her to join them on a dungeon expedition, reassuring her that she had nothing to worry about. They were experienced adventurers after all. Alicia had smiled and nodded in agreement. Inside the dungeon, they moved slowly. The men placed Alicia in the middle of their group, explaining the creatures lurking within and the history of how the dungeon had formed. One of the men, clearly the leader, watched Alicia closely. He was trying to assess her strength and guessing she might be of noble blood. Either of those would fetch a very high price on the black market. This wasn't their first time luring girls into a dungeon to rob and kill them. But last time, their victim escaped, just long enough to report them to the guild before dying. They knew they couldn't afford another mistake. They planned to leave the city soon, but they were broke and already arguing about money. That's when someone approached them, offering a cheap bottle of sleeping potion. They bought it without hesitation. Later at the guild, they spotted Alicia and instantly thought, perfect bait. One of them slipped the potion into her food and drink, but nothing happened. Alicia kept smiling like usual, and the leader started to get suspicious. Maybe his friend didn't actually use the potion. Maybe he was too taken by Alicia's beauty. Honestly, it wouldn't be surprising. He was starting to feel the same. Alicia looked fragile, graceful, almost otherworldly. There was something magnetic about her, something that made men want to protect her. He glanced at his other friend. Was he thinking the same? His face suddenly went pale. Were they planning to betray him, to keep Alicia for themselves? But before he could say anything, a strange thought crossed his mind. What if he didn't sell her? What if he built a future with her? Then his body suddenly felt heavy, his vision blurred. One of his friends dropped to the ground, then the other. He didn't realize he was falling too. Caught in a deep hallucination, he saw Alicia walking toward him. He thought she was going to heal him. He didn't notice the dagger in her hand, or the cold, piercing look in her eyes. A second later, all 3 men were dead. Alicia had finished her mission easily, but she wasn't done yet. She ducked quickly as a sword came flying her way, embedding itself into the stone wall behind her. Alicia didn't flinch. She turned calmly toward the source. A man stepped out, chuckling, clearly impressed. It was Guy. He had been tailing her since she entered the city, though Alicia had already sensed him and made preparations. Guy raised his sword and declared that he was here for revenge, for Keela. He wanted Alicia to suffer just as much as Keela had. He even kicked one of the corpses on the ground, angry that they'd messed things up despite having the sleeping potion. All Guy wanted was to leave a huge scar on Alicia's face as payback. He warned her not to fight back, but Alicia didn't flinch. Instead, she warned him. She knew Keela had sent him, and she was more than ready. Suddenly, Guy collapsed to the ground, shocked. He couldn't move his legs. That's when it hit him. He'd been poisoned. It was from a spider crafted by Sejura, a weapon Alicia had kept just for this moment. Then Alicia threw a small glass vial near him. It shattered instantly, releasing a strange scent. Before Guy could react, she tossed another. This time, he slashed it in midair, but the vial still broke, covering him in some sweet-smelling fluid. Not poison. Something worse. It smelled like dungeon insects. Guy's eyes widened in horror. Alicia leapt away to higher ground, ignoring his screams. Moments later, a swarm of giant dungeon insects came rushing in, drawn to the scent. Guy, still paralyzed, couldn't defend himself. The swarm descended on him, tearing into his body. In a last act of fury, he hurled his sword at Alicia. It missed. Then he vanished beneath the swarm. Alicia watched it happen, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled slightly. From the beginning, Guy had been her real target. A month had passed when Alicia returned to the Assassin Guild. Dino was impressed. He thought she finished her mission quickly. In truth, it only took her 3 days. She just lingered in the dungeon longer to sharpen her skills. After receiving her reward, Alicia was handed a new mission. This time, it was about a rogue party called Dawn Mercenaries, from Guild, and known for causing major chaos. They'd fled to the royal capital and were rumored to be hiding in a nearby mega dungeon. Alicia raised a question. Why hasn't the main assassin guild in the capital dealt with them yet? Dino smiled and explained. The guilds aren't united. There's no official alliance between the branches and the capital. They're not enemies, but they don't really cooperate either. Just mutual respect. Then his expression shifted. He gave Alicia a sharp look. I haven't seen Guy in a week. You know anything? She shook her head, pretending not to know. Dino studied her for a moment, then sighed and walked off. Alicia stayed alert, just in case. She wandered through the tunnels, careful not to run into Keela, who she avoided deliberately. In one room, the sharp smell of alcohol filled the air. A hulking man stood surrounded by barrels. His aura was terrifying. Sharga, the berserker. Alicia quickly backed off. She wasn't ready to deal with him. Around another corner, she stopped dead in her tracks. A thick wave of dark magic rolled toward her. From the end of the tunnel came a sage elf, moving slowly and staring right at her. Alicia stepped back, carefully avoiding conflict. Thankfully, the sage didn't attack and simply walked away. She let out a quiet breath. Then she headed deeper into the guild tunnels, straight to a cell that held a monstrous figure, Gord, the executioner. The thing growled low. Its combat stats were insane. As soon as it spotted Alicia, it lunged toward her. The chains held barely. She saw it, the dark magic swirling around him. A terrifying mix. Instead of flinching, Alicia stepped forward, locked eyes with it, and reached out to touch its claw. Gord flinched in surprise and pulled back. Alicia smirked. She will build the perfect stage for him someday. Then she checked her next target, a group of thieves who stole a noble family's heirloom. They were last seen heading to the royal capital, but Alicia didn't take the safe route. Instead, she entered a dangerous mountain valley swarming with monsters. Risky, but much faster. Almost immediately, a flock of hawk monsters dove at her. She swung her blade, but they were too fast. So, she tossed her pendulum weapon, missed, but charged it with mana mid-air. The pendulum snapped back like a whip, impaling one of the birds. The others kept coming. Alicia summoned 2 more pendulums, spinning and slashing wildly. Dozens fell, but some cast wind magic at her. She activated a magic shield just in time, deflecting their spells and forcing them to flee, but she wasn't safe yet. Above, a bone-chilling shriek echoed. A massive great raven descended, a rank 3 monster. Alicia threw her dagger, but its steel-hard feathers deflected the hit. Its claw was inches from her. Thinking fast, Alicia used her pendulum to wrap the bird's wings, dodging the blow and locking it midair. The raven shrieked and tried to slam her into the cliffs, but Alicia activated a hidden spike from her boots, anchoring herself to the ground using body enhancement magic. It became a battle of raw force, like tug-of-war with death. Alicia won. She hurled the raven to the ground with a crushing slam. Breathing heavily, she stood over the fallen monster. Great ravens weren't easy prey, but she took it down with brute force. to send a message to every monster on that cliff. She harvested the meat and its magic stone, cooked some for supplies, and packed the rest. Now, with her pendulum stored inside a mini dark hole on her palm, thanks to her current level 2 dark magic, Alicia kept moving. That spell was inspired by the storage bag Willow gave her, but to expand it, she'd need to reach dark magic level 4. For now, it could only hold small things like her pendulums. She journeyed day and night with steady pace. 3 days passed, and not a single monster dared to challenge her again. Alicia was getting closer to the royal palace, traveling through a forest she thought was already safe from high-ranking monsters. But suddenly, up ahead, she spotted an orc casually strolling through the trees. She quickly assessed its strength. It was pretty powerful. Normally, orcs moved in groups, but this one seemed to be alone. Luckily, thanks to her level 3 stealth skill, the orc hadn't noticed her yet. She didn't hesitate. Alicia used her dark magic to summon a rabbit illusion as a distraction, then leapt down from above, aiming straight for the orc's neck, a vital spot. Her first strike slashed from the side, but the orc's thick flesh absorbed the blow. Alicia quickly backed off, drew her second dagger, and activated her skill. The moment the orc turned toward her, she was already plunging the blade into its body, finishing it off for good. 2 weeks later, Alicia finally arrived at the royal palace. At the gate, a line of people waited as guards checked everyone's identification. She quietly considered which fake name to use this time. Eventually, she settled on Aria. As she pulled out the ID with that name, a wave of memories hit her. 1 full year had passed since she left the orphanage. The emotions were still mixed. Letting out a slow breath, Alicia tucked the ID away again, suddenly remembering Galbus's brother. Maybe I'll look for him if I have the time, she thought. She glanced around. The royal capital was massive and bustling, packed with people and patrolled by guards everywhere. It was clear her mission here might be more complicated than expected. As she walked deeper into the city, Alicia sensed some unwanted stares. Maybe it was just curiosity, not suspicion, but something felt off. She realized someone was following her. 3 people, to be exact. Troublemakers, she guessed. Without breaking stride, Alicia turned into a narrow alley, intentionally picking a dead end. A few teenage boys followed her in, pulling out small knives and demanding money. She didn't flinch. Alicia shot them a cold, piercing look and reached for her pendulum weapon, ready to strike. But before she could act, a voice barked sharply at the boys. Someone stepped into the alley, walking fast and confidently. Alicia turned to see who it was, and her eyes widened in disbelief. Standing there, one hand on his hip and a long sword strapped to his back, was someone she never expected to see again. It was Feld. She had run into him again, right here in the royal capital. Alicia couldn't believe what she was seeing. The man who had just taken down a group of boys trying to mug her was Feld. He asked if she was okay and explained that someone had asked him to look after her. Alicia froze, realizing Feld didn't recognize her at all. With how much her appearance had changed, it made sense. She looked to where Feld pointed and saw 3 person at the end of the alley, smiling at her. One of them, a blonde-haired boy, waved. It was the prince, with Mihail standing silently beside him. El seemed genuinely worried for her, introducing himself and claiming it was his duty to protect people. Mihail, however, whispered that he knew Alicia was actually a girl. He admitted he liked strong girls, and was curious why she disguised herself as a boy, even saying she felt strangely familiar. El observed that Alicia and Mihail looked oddly similar, something that unsettled her. Despite owing Feld her life, Alicia remained wary of the people around him. Feld noticed her damaged gear, and one of his companions finally spoke up. She was a forest elf named Mira, graceful and radiating a faint magical aura. Mira knew a good blacksmith, and El suggested they all go together. Alicia reluctantly agreed and soon found herself the center of attention, walking through the city surrounded by 2 handsome boys and 2 well-known adventurers. Mihail's curiosity toward her was obvious, a level of attention that even Elle found unusual. Despite their friendship, Mihail kept a certain distance, a behavior that strangely reminded Alicia of herself. When Elle asked about her work as an adventurer, she simply explained that she hunted monsters and took missions, adding bluntly that anyone with intent to kill could become a killer. The remark surprised everyone, though Mihail's interest in her only deepened. Their group eventually arrived at a dwarven blacksmith shop, where Mira called for the owner, Gelf. He was strikingly unusual, with a flamboyant and feminine demeanor. While the others were stunned, Alicia calmly handed him her broken gear, recognizing him as Galbus's younger brother. Gelf quickly identified the problem and invited her into his workshop. Mihail tried to stop her, questioning if Gelf's appearance bothered her, but Alicia dismissed it, saying people were free to look however they wanted. Once again, the group was taken aback by her straightforwardness. Elle then realized Mihail had been worried she might feel uncomfortable, which explained why he had been so attentive. Embarrassed, Mihail admitted he simply couldn't ignore reckless people in such a dangerous world. Alicia finally understood that his confusing behavior was rooted in genuine concern. Gelf joked about not stealing Mihail's pretty girl and led Alicia inside, leaving Feld and Elle confused, thinking the dwarf had mistaken her identity. In a private room, Gelf recognized Alicia's dagger as one crafted by his brother. A warm smile spread across his face. His brother must have liked her enough to give her such a gift. An idea sparked, and Gelf eagerly asked Alicia to try something out. When they returned to the main hall, Mihail and Elle froze in shock. Alicia's appearance had completely transformed. She wore a sleek leather dress, feminine yet strong, with her hair let down freely. Gelf proudly announced it was no ordinary outfit, but a specially crafted armor. As he brushed through Alicia's hair, its ashen tint vanished, and with a serious look, he handed her something small and personal. Alicia realized she could no longer hide behind her male disguise. Her only option now was a cloak. When Gelf asked for opinions, the boys were speechless, too captivated to respond. Feld, however, only looked confused, still processing that Alicia was actually a girl. Alicia thanked Gelf and quickly left, unwilling to linger with Feld's group. She had a mission to complete. It wasn't until later that she noticed what Gelf had given her: underwear. 2 days passed, and Alicia suspected the Assassin Guild might already be suspicious of her. That's when a voice, cold and sharp, came from the shadows. She stopped and turned. Rada, the shadow wielder, emerged, accusing her of doing something to Guy. Alicia feigned ignorance, but Rada knew the truth. Kira had ordered Guy to attack Alicia, and now Guy was missing. When Alicia suggested he might have simply lost to a monster, Rada snapped. Guy was far too skilled to die so easily. Rada's eyes burned with fury. She was certain Guy had been set up, and Alicia was her prime suspect. She hurled a document at Alicia, vowing to deal with her after completing her current mission. Alicia asked what Guy meant to her. Rada hesitated, then retreated back into the shadows, her voice barely above a whisper. Guy was her brother, the only family she had. As orphans, both had endured cruelty and discrimination, but Guy had given her strength and purpose. The memory made Radha grit her teeth in rage. If Guy had been harmed, she would kill Alicia without hesitation. Alicia, meanwhile, had no intention of being exposed as a traitor within the guild, especially not by Radha. A thin smile crossed her face. It was time to prepare for her second assassination. 2 days later, she returned to Gelf's workshop, looking for a cheap cloak. Gelf sighed at her poor taste in clothing, but promised to pick something better for her. She also asked if her repaired gear was ready. She wanted to change out of her borrowed clothes. Of course, the equipment was finished, but Gelf couldn't understand why she insisted on wearing men's clothes again. Alicia felt awkward. It wasn't her armor. Gelf only sighed. saying how much he loved making stylish yet protective gear and how he sought worthy people to wear it. He believed Alicia was perfect for it, telling her she could pay later as long as she visited often. Alicia laughed softly. Gelf had the same kindness as his brother. Still, he couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when she once again changed her hair color back to gray. Wearing her newly repaired gear felt like donning something brand new. Alicia said her farewells and left. From a distance, she gazed up at the castle and thought of Elena. She knew she wasn't strong enough yet to kill all her enemies, but one day, she would be. Only then would she meet Elena again, when she was powerful enough to protect her. According to the information, Alicia's mission target was inside a massive dungeon 2 days' travel from the capital, near the city of Eld. Without wasting time, she headed straight there and went directly to the nearest adventurers' guild. At the reception desk, she asked if any adventurers could guide her deep into the dungeon's lower floors. For that, she needed someone of at least rank 4, and she had to negotiate with them herself. The target was already inside the dungeon and would emerge in 2 days. After gathering information, Alicia stepped outside, only to sense someone tailing her. 2 weak presences and one far stronger than the rest. That was when 2 men approached, offering to escort her into the dungeon for money. Alicia ignored them, more interested in the powerful presence she had sensed. Offended by her silence, one man lunged at her. She met his eyes with a cold glare and struck him sharply under the chin. In one smooth motion, she unleashed her newly equipped wrist bow, the arrow piercing straight through his skull. He collapsed instantly, dead before he hit the ground. A sudden heat flared behind her. Before she could react, the other man was engulfed in flames and reduced to ash in seconds. Alicia exhaled sharply. That was the work of the strong presence she had sensed earlier. From behind a wall stepped a black-haired girl, Carla, the infamous villain. She calmly offered to act as Alicia's guide. Wary, Alicia questioned her identity. Carla didn't explain her origin, only gave her name. But Alicia could tell. This girl's mana was immense, dangerously so. For a moment, Alicia considered killing her, yet her instincts told her not to. Carla, on the other hand, smiled faintly. She found Alicia different from ordinary humans. Carla could smell something unique in Alicia's blood, a scent unlike any other. Alicia openly called out what she had deduced, a statement that might have saved her life. Carla's eyes lit up with interest. She liked Alicia's straightforwardness and asked for her name while stepping closer. Alicia gave it without hesitation, her expression unreadable. Carla was intrigued. Why reveal her name so easily? It's just because Alicia simply had no reason to kill her. Carla laughed loudly, genuinely entertained, and offered once more to guide her through the dungeon. Alicia hesitated. Carla's health points were unusually low, but Carla only shrugged, saying it didn't matter. If anyone was upset, it would just be her father for losing a pawn. Alicia muttered softly at that. Carla reminded her of herself and Elena, people burdened with power forced upon them, struggling to survive. Maybe Carla had her own reasons for taking such reckless risks. Finally, Alicia agreed, on the condition that she would leave Carla behind if she fainted. Carla grinned widely at that and happily followed, leaving 2 corpses cooling in the street. When they reached the dungeon, the guards refused entry, citing their age. Carla's voice turned razor sharp as she questioned whether the guard was new. When the captain arrived and locked eyes with Carla, he panicked and immediately let them pass. Inside, Carla explained that the dungeon had over 100 floors, though only 50 had been fully explored. Rumor had it that a spirit lived deep in the lowest floors, a spirit that could grant wishes. Alicia assumed Carla was chasing that spirit. Soon after entering, they encountered goblins. Carla wanted to see how Alicia fought. Without hesitation, Alicia hurled a dagger, instantly killing one goblin, then calmly slit the throat of another as she walked past. Carla couldn't take her eyes off the elegance of Alicia's killing style. The second group of goblins appeared, and Alicia refused to take them on alone. Carla stepped forward, weaving fire and wind together, dual casting. It was only Tier 1 magic, yet the destructive force was unsettling, almost unnatural. Alicia realized then that Carla could probably kill Radha, or even a rank 4 adventurer, without breaking a sweat. They continued deeper into the dungeon. Along the way, Carla casually asked if Alicia knew why monsters never triggered dungeon traps. It wasn't because monsters were smart or cautious, she explained. It was because the dungeon itself simply didn't activate traps on them. So don't wander carelessly, she warned. Then, almost out of nowhere, Carla began talking about meeting her fiancé a few days ago. Alicia quickly discovered Carla liked to talk. Oversharing came naturally to her. She spoke of how innocent her fiancé was, and how she couldn't wait to see that innocence shatter once his hands were stained with blood. The shocking part is, her fiancé had plenty of suitors to choose from because he was none other than the prince. Carla laughed as she admitted that, once chosen, she might kill the other candidates out of sheer jealousy. Alicia couldn't help but suspect Carla was a high-ranking noble. That meant her path might eventually cross with Elena's, and when it did, they could easily become enemies. Carla suddenly stopped talking and fixed Alicia with a piercing gaze. Could Alicia stop her? She asked. Alicia hesitated, then answered quietly, if death is what Carla wants, she might grant it. Carla smiled faintly at that answer, then mumbled, when her time had come, she wanted to die by Alicia's hands. Their progress eventually halted. Carla's health points were dangerously low. Alicia supported her out of the dungeon, where a waiting carriage stood by. Before leaving, Carla leaned in and whispered, "Someone's been tailing you, you know." Alicia already knew. It had to be Radha. Carla offered to kill the stalker herself, but Alicia declined. Carla chuckled knowingly and stepped into the carriage. Their paths would cross again. Fate would see to it. Alicia's focus shifted back to Radha. The girl surely knew Alicia had killed Guy, yet she hadn't acted. Perhaps she was waiting for the right moment, unable to make a move inside the capital's jurisdiction. Before this day, Radha met with Kira. Kira, aware of Radha's past with Guy, tried to use her grief as a weapon, pushing her to kill Alicia. At first, Radha refused to be manipulated, but when she finally came face to face with Alicia and confirmed Guy's death, her resolve hardened. Still, Radha couldn't attack recklessly. Dino needed Alicia alive for now, and she owed a debt to the previous guildmaster. She swore to kill Alicia quietly, in a place where no one could interfere. The dungeon. There, she encountered the Dawn mercenaries. Alicia had been following them, likely her mission target. Radha had studied their stats before and doubted someone like Alicia, only rank 2, could possibly handle them. She decided to wait until Alicia was overwhelmed, then strike her down with a single killing blow. From the shadows, Radha followed effortlessly. Her skill allowed her to merge into nearby darkness, though it came with a flaw. Each shift left her momentarily disconnected from the outside world. When she finally sensed Alicia and the mercenaries, something felt wrong. The distance between them was unnaturally small, as if Alicia had slipped past without triggering a single detection skill. That shouldn't have been possible. Curiosity gnawed at her, and she drew closer, opening a small shadow portal to peek through, and froze. A black dot floated in front of her dot. Before she could react, a dagger shot out from it and buried itself in her throat. Radha staggered out of the shadow and collapsed, but a chilling incantation echoed in her ears. Then a hailstorm of ice arrows tore through her body. Coughing blood, she tried to fight back, but Alicia was already upon her. Another black dot formed. Another dagger lunged at her eye. She caught it with her bare hand, recognizing the blade instantly. Alicia's dagger. But that technique, that black hole, how? She used appraisal, desperate for answers, then froze in disbelief. Alicia's stats were completely different, far beyond what they had been when they first met. The truth hit her like a hammer. Alicia had been hunting guild members to increase her power. The last thing Rada saw was an ice arrow piercing her skull. Then, darkness. To understand how Alicia's plan succeeded, we need to rewind to that morning. Inside a quiet inn, two men waited for their companion, unaware that Alicia was watching from afar. Their names were Randy and Duncan, members of the Dawn Mercenaries. Soon after, a woman named Glinda and a man named Daggert joined them. These four were Alicia's targets. Only Daggert had reached level 4. The others were level 3 with a handful of skills, but Daggert lacked mana, focusing purely on physical combat and relying on his team for everything else. No wonder adventurers like Kira and Guy struggled against their teamwork. Until now, Alicia had only faced solitary foes, easy to trick and pick off. But hunting the Dawn Mercenaries as a group? That was a new challenge. She tailed them quietly as they entered a dungeon. Alicia had already mapped out the fastest routes with Carla, ensuring she stayed one step ahead. As expected, the mercenaries cut through monsters with ease. Alicia concealed her presence, waiting until they reached a deep, empty floor. Then, deliberately, she dropped her stealth and stepped out from the shadows. The Dawn mercenaries spun in surprise, but Alicia quickly signaled danger, warning them through gestures that an enemy lurked nearby. Daggert assumed she was being chased and needed protection. With feigned innocence, Alicia explained she thought she was the one being hunted, until she realized the enemy might be after them instead. She even apologized for following them secretly, putting on the act of a helpless mage. Glinda quickly appraised her. Combat power, just 200. Harmless. Daggert dismissed her as no threat. Duncan confirmed something was indeed following them. Randy decided it was their enemy, not Alicia, and trusted her information. Duncan asked if she knew how the enemy hid. Alicia claimed she could barely sense movement when it appeared, letting them believe she was a low-level mage. Daggert ordered Duncan and Glinda to assist her. Alicia whispered a spell she had perfected, but never used. Her true strength carefully hidden to keep her stats capped at 200. Darkness pooled in her palm as she shaped a shadow spell similar to Rada's. A small black sphere formed, linking to her target's presence. She flung her dagger into her own shadow, sending it slicing through the void, piercing Rada's throat the instant he emerged. The mercenary struck immediately, unaware that Alicia's attack had already crippled their foe. She knew Rada's skill consumed heavy mana and blinded him during transitions. Her version, smaller and sharper, exploited that flaw perfectly. A second dagger finished her off, boosting her stats dramatically. Combat power now over 400 and rank 3 achieved. Glinda approached, intrigued by the shadow technique. Alicia, however, eyed Glinda's necklace, a stolen heirloom she recognized. Glinda, thinking Alicia admired its beauty, proudly mentioned it boosted magic power and asked her to demonstrate the spell again. Alicia complied, conjuring another shadow sphere. As Glinda leaned in for a closer look, Alicia hurled her bow into the shadow beneath her feet. It reappeared in her hands, striking straight through Glinda's eye. She died silently, collapsing against Alicia's shoulder. Duncan rushed over, thinking she'd simply collapse from fatigue, until he saw Alicia's cold stare. For a moment, he felt a crushing sense of danger. He reached for his dagger, but Alicia shoved Glinda's body toward him and lunged. Duncan barely avoided a lethal strike, but his arm was slashed open. Daggert shouted as he and Randy drew weapons, finally realizing who the real enemy was. Alicia clicked her tongue. Her first kill attempt on Duncan had failed. Another dagger flew toward him, but Daggert blocked it with ease, ordering Duncan to use potion immediately. Furious, Randy charged despite Duncan's warning. Alicia smirked. He still believed she was the weak girl with combat power 200. His overconfidence sealed his fate. She cast Phantom Pain, sending waves of unbearable agony through his body. Randy collapsed to his knees, and Alicia closed the distance, driving her bow blade straight through his throat. For good measure, she stabbed him again, leaving him sprawled, lifeless dot. When she turned her gaze on the remaining two mercenaries, her eyes burned with predatory hunger, like a lion cornering terrified prey. Daggert froze, then shouted, "Who sent you? The demon clans?" Alicia paused, curious at the accusation. Daggert exhaled in relief, then revealed something. The heirloom Glinda carried was a forbidden magic spirit stone, outlawed by the Holy Church of Pandora. Alicia didn't understand why that should concern her. After all, nobles often collected such stones in secret for their beauty, and elemental stones held little value for her. Still, it made sense that a mission involving one would be kept quiet. Daggert tried to persuade her. He called the nobles the real criminals and asked her to join him in delivering justice. The words made Alicia's stomach churn. Duncan protested. Alicia had killed their companions, but Daggert was insistent. They needed someone strong. Duncan had no counter, while Alicia silently gripped her dagger, feigning agreement as she stepped closer. Duncan hesitated. He raised his own dagger, offering a handshake to make peace. But the movement was a trick. A quick slash aimed at her side. Alicia blocked effortlessly. Daggert lunged instantly, swinging his sword, but Alicia darted behind Duncan. When Duncan turned, confused, Alicia's blade had already torn through the artery in his neck. Daggert caught him, panic flashing across his face as Duncan's life drained away. His voice trembled. How had she seen through their lie? Alicia didn't bother to answer. She had no interest in their noble heirloom or their moral theater. Staring him down, she coldly remarked that if he'd protected Duncan, instead of staging a cheap trick, defeating them might have been harder. Her words cut deep, shattering Daggert's pride. He dropped Duncan's body carelessly, grabbed his sword, and roared with fury. Alicia shed her cloak, readying herself for battle against an adventurer ranked at 4. Daggert charged, his swing shattering the dungeon floor, but Alicia leapt clear, hurling a dagger in midair. He tilted his head, narrowly avoiding the pendulum-like strike, and backed away to reassess. She paused. Daggert narrowed his eyes. Why stop? Giving up already? Alicia sighed, annoyed. She wanted him to fight seriously. She hadn't killed Radha and the others for nothing. This was her real goal, facing someone truly powerful. Radha, for all her clever magic and tactics, had only been a top-ranked 3. Alicia wanted a fair fight, one that could push her limits, raise her stats even higher. Daggert studied her, then gave a grim nod. There are people you should never cross, the broken ones. Even monsters fear stronger prey, but those who are shattered inside, they'll gamble their lives for victory. He could see it in her eyes. He would not underestimate her again. He leveled his sword. Alicia smiled. That was what she'd wanted from the start. Both lunged. Alicia's dagger flashed first, but Daggert sidestepped and countered with a slash. She ducked low, driving her blade toward him, only for Daggert to slam her with the hilt of his sword. Pain jolted through her ribs, but she vaulted past his next strike, using the wall for momentum as she dove straight at him. Daggert drew a short blade from his back, meeting her attack head-on. Their eyes locked, predator and prey indistinguishable, before steel clashed in a flurry of strikes. Daggers darted and parried in a vicious rhythm, slashes, counters, and evasions so fast they blurred. A shallow cut opened on Alicia's arm, but she didn't flinch, only grinned wider. Alicia knew Daggert was dangerous. Taking him head-on might have been reckless. Yet, in the Assassin Guild, there were foes far deadlier than him. If she couldn't beat Daggert, she had no chance of surviving there. If strength failed her, she would rely on wisdom. If stamina ran thin, she would counter with precision. She fought with sharp instincts and flawless technique, reading Daggert's every move. He thought she was reaching her limit, yet Alicia pressed on like her life hung by a thread. Because it did. Every clash sharpened her skill. She pivoted on her heel, deflecting his weakest angle and throwing him off balance. Daggert's eyes widened. She had just mirrored his own technique and mastered it mid-fight. Forced onto the defensive, he unleashed his sword skill. Level 3, wide sweeping strike swirling like a hurricane. Alicia inhaled sharply, magic resistance and body reinforcement flaring at once. The storm of blades cut her, but only left shallow wounds. She hurled a dagger. Daggert smirked. She must be exhausted from that double spell. Dodging it was easy. Too easy. He never saw the trap. Alicia had already mapped his evasions. The dagger was just a lure. Her pendulum swung next, slicing across his neck. He staggered, shocked. Alicia lunged, aiming to finish him. Daggert roared, charging forward and activating a final skill to end it in one strike. His blade slashed, but Alicia dropped back, her boot flashing. A hidden dagger snapped out from her heel, catching him completely off guard. He stumbled, off balance, and Alicia's strike carved into his neck. Blood erupted, yet Daggert still stood. A rank 4 fighter's durability bordered on monstrous. Even with a gaping wound, he grabbed her wrist, locking her dagger, and collapsed forward to crush her skull. Alicia let go willingly. In a heartbeat, a razor-thin plate of light formed at his throat. Daggert froze, breath choking. Before his hand could reach her, his body stopped. Then the magic blade vanished, and blood fountained across the battlefield. He collapsed on top of her, lifeless eyes staring into nothing. Alicia gasped under his weight, staring into death itself. She shoved his body aside, drenched in his blood, and felt the rush of power surge through her. Her stats rose. She exhaled slowly, sinking into the moment, resting despite the carnage. The future would be just as merciless.
After a brutal battle in the dungeon, Alicia returned to see Gelf. The dwarf's face lit up at first, but quickly turned pale when he noticed her clothes. Her outfit was in ruins, ripped, faded, and worn down, despite only a month of use. Alicia, as innocent as ever, asked if he could repair it right away. Perhaps it was her constant use of purification magic on bloodstains that had ruined the fabric. Gelf crouched down to inspect the damage, and his expression told her enough. It wouldn't be easy to fix. Alicia immediately looked guilty, but the dwarf only laughed. After all, that set was just a prototype. He had already crafted something better. The new outfit fit her perfectly. Darker in color, yet softer and far more comfortable, designed with slits that gave her freedom to move. A compartment belt was built into the waist, with room for 2 daggers and hidden folds where smaller knives could be tucked away. Alicia spun around, testing the fabric with delight, her fingers brushing across every seam with amazement. Gelf let out a relieved grunt as she managed to put the complicated attire on without help, even if the fastenings were oddly designed. Alicia proudly showed she could handle it on her own. Then she asked him to check her boots and weapons as well. He agreed happily. It would take less than a day. While waiting, Alicia headed to the Merchants Guild. She handed over a package containing Mercenaries of Dawn Adventurer's tag, proof of her completed mission, and the stolen necklace the guild's client had requested. Normally, such proof was collected directly by the guild, but since she was in the capital, she had to send it through a merchant so the guild liaisons could retrieve it later. In truth, she wanted to deliver the real necklace herself, but that would draw suspicion. Instead, she handed over a fake and kept the authentic one hidden. By traveling through the shortcut valley, she could cut the usual 1-month route down to just 2 weeks. Enough time to set up traps and bring the Assassin's Guild down on their own grounds. She had already checked the Adventurers Guild in the capital, and fortunately, no one seemed aware that the mercenary group Dawn had been wiped out. Their corpses and belongings still lay in the dungeon, left behind on purpose, so suspicion would fall on whoever picked them up later. Carla's absence, however, lingered in Alicia's mind. After that strange farewell, Alicia wasn't sure if they would ever meet again. The next day, once her gear was ready, she bid farewell to Gelf and set out. Through the treacherous cliffs of the Shortcut Valley, her true war would begin. The Assassin's Guild had only a handful of members, but their reach spread through the city like hidden eyes. Most weren't even aware they were tied to the guild, ordinary citizens unknowingly caught in its net. Alicia had no intention of making them her targets. To trap the assassins, they could never learn she had returned ahead of schedule. She endured her hunger with pills made from potion ingredients already used to long stretches without food. By day, she remained hidden, unseen. By night, she moved silently through the capital. Even when a beggar, one who had once shown her the way to the assassin's hideout, recognized her, he showed no concern. Slipping into the shadows, Alicia reached the catacombs. The guild operated from an abandoned underground mine, sprawling and maze-like. But as she examined the depths, she noticed something crucial: vents scattered throughout the tunnels. Alicia had once tried poisoning the guild's ventilation shafts, but the professionals inside reacted too quickly. They tightened security and evacuated before the toxin could take effect. This time, she chose a different approach. She slipped into the guild's catacombs under the cover of silence. As she explored the winding corridors, her boot brushed against something odd, an ancient crack in the stone. It looked untouched for decades. Alicia crouched down, her sharp eyes tracing the path. It wasn't just a fracture, it was a forgotten escape tunnel leading out of the mine. She would set her traps there. For the next 2 days, Alicia inspected every vent, carving at the stone with her dagger inch by inch. 3 days of patient work finally paid off. She broke through one of the shafts, leaving just enough space to slip inside. Wiping sweat from her brow, she let out a quiet breath of relief. Here, no one would suspect her, no matter how much noise she made. Her footsteps echoed as she advanced, until the sound of guttural growls stopped her. A prison cell barred her path. Behind it, a hulking guard monster snarled, its bloodshot eyes locked on her. Alicia smiled faintly, her gaze sharp with intent. She whispered a promise to free the beast from its cage. Days later, she resurfaced, her clothes spotless. No trace of her infiltration remained. Passing through the hidden gate, she tossed a silver coin to the ragged man who stood watch there. He laughed, thinking it a bribe to keep him silent, but Alicia only replied coolly that it was meant to cheer him up. With her hood drawn low and her jaw set, she was ready. The guild would fall, and anyone who stood in her way would be treated as an enemy. Inside the guild, the halls appeared empty, but Alicia could feel the presence of many watching eyes. Ever since her fight with Rada, her senses had sharpened. She could almost taste the weight of their gazes. Without hesitation, she strode to Dino's office and knocked. The man greeted her with a wide smile, feigning warmth. He praised her for completing the impossible mission, though Alicia could read his true intent. He had hoped she would nearly die, just so he could save her and tighten her master debt to him. He handed her a pouch of coins as payment, instructing her to wait for the liaison to return with proof of the Dawn mercenary's death. The weight felt wrong in her hand, too light. Corruption was written all over it. Dino had taken his cut before passing it along. As she turned to leave, Dino remarked with surprise that she had returned much sooner than expected, even before the liaison. Alicia shrugged and explained truthfully. She had used the northern cliffs as a shortcut. Dino's eyes narrowed. That route was treacherous, nearly impossible without a party. Could Alicia truly have managed it alone? His suspicion told her one thing. He had already appraised her stats. Even under her layered protections and enchanted cloak, Dino had pierced through the disguise. Alicia deflected smoothly, claiming she had simply grown stronger through battle. Dino mulled over her words, then smirked with an unsettling glint in his eyes. He spoke of wanting to continue their partnership. Alicia said nothing, her glare sharp and unyielding. She knew exactly what he wanted, a pawn to use at his convenience. When she reached her own room, she paused. The wards she had set to detect intruders were gone. The door creaked open on its own. Inside, Keela was waiting, smiling as though she owned the place. Keela's expression twisted, her tongue sliding across her lips with a sly glint. She chuckled, claiming she thought Alicia had fled the guild. Then, she asked if Alicia had seen Rada, adding that she was impressed. Every mercenary she had sent to break the girl's will had failed. Keela opened the door and gestured for Alicia to step inside. The room beyond was in ruins. Furniture shattered, debris scattered everywhere, the air thick with dust. It was hardly fit for anyone to live in. Alicia clicked her tongue in disgust, refusing to use a room so deliberately wrecked. As always, Keela hated being defied. Her expression twisted with fury, insults spilling from her lips. She claimed she had only prepared some toys for Alicia's amusement, but as she shifted her weight, her foot pressed against something beneath the rubble. A dagger shot out, whistling past Alicia's cheek and burying itself in the wall. The traps were everywhere. The chaos of the room wasn't random, it was a cover. Alicia stepped forward, deliberately letting her boot catch one of the tripwires. A bow hidden in the rafters snapped to life, firing an arrow straight for her skull. Keela's grin widened, eager to see Alicia's head burst apart. But Alicia was faster. She snapped her gaze upward, chanting "Shadow Abductor." A dark rift opened, swallowing the arrow mid-flight. In the next instant, she redirected it through a portal beneath Keela's feet. The arrow re-emerged, stabbing deep into the gothic girl's stomach. Keela gasped, clutching her wound, eyes wide with shock. She hadn't expected Alicia to slip past her trap so easily, but Alicia kept advancing, her presence sharp and terrifying. For all her theatrics, Keela was painfully predictable. Once, Alicia thought the girl dangerous, someone to avoid. Now, she saw the truth. Keela was the weakest of them all. In a flash, Alicia's hand shot to her throat. Keela staggered back, twin blades snapping out from her sleeves in a desperate counterattack. But Alicia was already moving. Two pendulums sliced across the girl's arms, drawing blood and knocking her off balance. With a flick, Alicia's wires looped around her neck. She leapt behind, pulling tight with merciless force. Keela's body thrashed, her mangled arms too weak to break free. She turned her head, eyes pleading silently for mercy. Alicia gave none. The wires dug deeper, tighter, until the sharp crack of bone echoed through the ruined room. Keela went limp, collapsing into Alicia's lap, her life snuffed out in silence. But before the story moves on, another figure must be known. It's the guildmaster Dino. Once he had been a boy who burned with righteous fire, determined to judge evil wherever it hid. Raised in poverty by his mother, he joined the assassin guild as soon as he was old enough, and the guildmaster was his own father. At first, Dino believed in justice, but bloodshed grew more intoxicating than ideals, and soon, killing became his true devotion. It was within the guild that he first met Sajura, the dark elf. Dino was immediately captivated, awed by his skill and reputation. He begged his father to force Sajura into becoming his teacher. The elf, unwilling but bound to obey the guildmaster, accepted. Dino trained hard, showing promise. Yet, Sajura never praised him more than necessary, never gave him the recognition Dino craved. But Dino saw it differently. In every lack of praise, he saw rejection, insult, betrayal. Hatred took root in his heart, and he swore to make Sajura suffer for the rest of his life. Back to the presents, hours after Arya's arrival, a guild liaison met with Dino, delivering evidence from merchants. Dino immediately demanded to know Radha's whereabouts, but the liaison hadn't seen the Shadow Woman. His specialty was espionage, not combat. He had neither the strength nor the nerve to slip into the dungeon and check for himself. Dino frowned, suspicion rising. If Radha had been wounded inside the dungeon, why hadn't Alicia reported it? Something didn't add up. The liaison pressed him impatiently, urging Dino to examine the evidence quickly. After all, he wanted his payment. Dino opened the pouch and his suspicions were confirmed. Inside was an adventurer's identification card, belonging to the mercenary group Dawn. Next to it lay the client's stolen necklace. He stared at it for a long moment. Something was off. The chain and frame looked fake, but the spirit stone at its core was genuine. Why replace only the casing? Who would dare tamper with it, and for what purpose? A dreadful thought surfaced in his mind. Dino wanted to dismiss it, yet the more he considered the strange details and his doubts about Alicia, the clearer it became. She was capable of killing Radha. She could betray the guild. Jaw tightening, he rose from his seat, clutching the necklace, and went to search for her. Elsewhere in the guild, an assassin dragged himself through the doors, exhausted. He only wanted to collapse on a sofa, but halfway there, his knees buckled. His body went numb. Panic flared in his eyes. Poison. But when? And how? His resistance had always been strong. That was when Alicia appeared soundlessly behind him, her blade slicing across his throat. He died without a sound. The poison had been her work all along. For a week, she had been feeding it into the guild's drink supply. a subtle blend designed not to kill, but to weaken the nerves. Bit by bit, it broke down the body's natural resistance, slipping past every defense until even hardened assassins were helpless. Then, outside her target's room, she released a second agent, a chemical haze that completed the reaction, turning the weakened blood into a perfect vessel for her neurotoxin. The poison alone couldn't kill quickly, but Alicia could. All she needed was the finishing stroke. The guild began to stir. Voices rose in alarm. They had discovered her. By then, half of them were already dead. Alicia quickened her pace, cutting down whoever crossed her path. Her movements blurred in the darkness, a shadow weaving between corridors, her pendulum blade dropping foes two at a time. She moved with ruthless precision, slashing, running, vanishing into blackness. Suddenly, an explosion ripped open the doors ahead. The ground trembled. A man in heavy armor stormed through, bellowing her name. His voice carried through the guild hall. The shout reached Dino and the elven mage in the distance. It was Sharga, the mad warrior. His eyes blazed with fury, his axe already raised to tear her apart. Alicia hurled a dagger at him, only for it to be cleaved aside in a single sweep. Sharga's rage erupted, his strikes shattering furniture and walls. She hadn't meant to wound him. She only wanted to test if her poison had taken effect. It hadn't. She turned and sprinted down the corridor, Sharga roaring as he gave chase. Alicia's plan was simple: draw him out, enrage him, and lead him straight into the one enemy he couldn't ignore. The wall beside them cracked. Stone crumbled, then burst apart in a thunderous crash. A massive hand punched through, followed by the hulking body of a chimera. Its gourd, towering 3 times Sharga's size, he lunged at the warrior with crushing force. Sharga blocked with his shield, stunned to see Gord free at all. The two monsters glared at one another, the ground quaking as Gord swung again with terrifying speed. Sharga barely managed to brace against the blow. Once, Gord had been human. Now, cursed and twisted by drugs and curse, he was a chimera, imprisoned by the guild. Alicia didn't know if he still remembered who he had been, but she had offered him freedom, and in return, he had not turned on her. Together, they had worked to neutralize the drug raging in his body. With spirit language written by her own mana into specific magicules, it activates when it touches the target creature. To dispel the curse, they need to read that order. They have no choice to cancel each other out using conflicting spirit language. In the end, they couldn't get rid of that curse completely. Even so, Alicia almost nullified the command-type spells. The only she need is Object of Hatred to break through the last remaining shackles. Gord launched a merciless flurry of strikes, hammering Sharga without pause. From behind, Alicia swung her pendulum, disorienting him further, then mocked him with a cruel taunt, telling him that his death was only moments away. Sharga froze, a shiver of terror running through him. That single reaction told Alicia everything. Beneath the heavy armor, he was a coward. Too fragile, too easily swayed by emotion, and far too afraid to cast off the protection he clung to. She could sense it. Sharga was terrified of dying. Her suspicion was correct. Behind the slit of his helm, his pupils trembled with panic, and in that instant, memories from his past resurfaced. Long ago, Sharga had been part of an adventuring party. As the shield-bearing tank, he was trusted to guard the front line. But when a massive serpent emerged from the depths of a dungeon, everything collapsed. At first, he braced himself, shaking but determined, believing his companions would stand with him. Yet, when he turned his head, they were gone. All of them had abandoned him in his moment of need. Frozen, pale with disbelief, he could not comprehend the betrayal. Was he going to die alone? His body moved on its own. In a surge of rage, he hurled his axe into the back of one fleeing ally, killing them instantly. That moment awakened something dark inside him, the berserker's phenomenon. Born from terror and fury, it strips away reason, unbinding the body until nothing remains but blind slaughter. He massacred every last companion, only regaining himself when he collapsed in exhaustion. By sheer stubbornness, his dwarven nature, he clawed back his sanity and staggered out of the dungeon. But outside, witnesses had seen everything. They branded him a murderer for killing his party. Those words broke him again, triggering another frenzy. The berserker within rampaged once more, and he butchered them too. From then on, Sharga lived in fear of death. He sealed himself in armor, switching parties again and again, but every time his companions eventually tried to leave him, every time he snapped, and every time he slaughtered them all. Desperate for someone who would never betray him, he finally met Dino and the Assassin Guild's master, who welcomed him in. But reality was cruel. The guild master treated lives as disposable, killing anyone deemed useless. Sharga's last hope crumbled. He trusted no one. His only wish left was survival, simply not to die. That desperate desire reignited the berserker's fire within him. Now, locked in battle with Gord, he swung his axe with all his strength. The clash shook the dungeon halls as both men roared, trading blows like beasts. Steel rang, stone shattered, and neither gave an inch, eyes clouded with nothing but the urge to kill. Alicia paused, watching them tear into each other. Then a plan formed. She sprinted forward, leapt high above them, and slashed both with her daggers, just enough to draw their attention. It worked. Enraged, Sharga and Gord abandoned each other and chased her down the corridor. Leading them deliberately, Alicia guided the two berserkers straight through the guild's ranks. Blind with bloodlust, they cut down everyone in their path. Members rushed to stop them, but it was useless. The two berserkers tore into each other while slaughtering any who strayed too close. The guild fell into chaos, screams, steel, and carnage devouring the halls. Dino arrived at the battlefield just in time, his face pale with panic as he shouted Alicia's name. He asked if she wasn't afraid that Sajura would be torn apart by the guild. Alicia, however, stood unshaken. Her eyes, sharp and chilling, cut straight through him. She declared she would simply kill anyone who tried to harm her master. Dino froze, his complexion draining even further. Only then did he realize the truth. This had been Alicia's plan all along. The girl suddenly hurled a dagger at him, laughing as she did. Dino dodged easily, but disbelief gripped him. The girl he had met just 5 months ago had been plotting all of this with terrifying precision. Around them, the battlefield was chaos. Corpses piling, the stench of blood thick in the air. Dino's chest burned with rage as he watched the guild he had built crumble before his eyes. With a furious roar, he charged at Alicia, his short sword flashing. She blocked in time, their blades sparking, and caught a glimpse of the murderous fury in his gaze. One quick appraisal told her the truth. His combat strength neared 800, and his body reinforcement exceeded 900. An opponent that strong would overwhelm anyone else. But Alicia already had a plan. Dino unleashed a spell, sending boulders hurtling toward her. Alicia darted aside with reinforced speed, letting the projectile smash into his own guild members. She leapt through the chaos, her blade flashing as she cut down 2 men in an instant. Their bodies crumpled while she mocked Dino, sneering that his blind rage had killed his own allies. His fury only grew, to the point he struck his own body in frustration. But Alicia knew the real threat hadn't appeared yet. She sighed, waiting, aware that the hidden enemy still lurked, one who despised everything tied to her master. Then, from the shadows, a wrinkled hand emerged. A pulse of dark magic filled the air, spreading like a sickness. Alicia stepped back, conjuring a shimmering shield while dodging attacks from the remaining guild members. The dark spell struck the ground where she had been a heartbeat earlier, swallowing everything in its path. Guild members screamed as the magic clung to them like burning tar, eating through flesh and armor alike. Alicia's cloak caught the edge of it, disintegrating instantly. She tore it off just in time, while others dissolved into ash. From the shadow, an aged forest elf stepped forward. It's Wise. He cursed under his breath, annoyed that Alicia had survived. Dino demanded answers, furious that the spell had consumed his own men. But Wise sneered, dismissing him as a lowly human unworthy to command him. Alicia understood now. Wise's hatred ran deep, not just toward her master Sajura, but toward the difference in their races, and the wound of being left behind. Meanwhile, Gord finally brought Sharga down, his claws tearing through the dwarf's mangled body, already half destroyed by Wise's dark magic. Gord himself was missing an arm from the same attack, his rage only growing hotter as he spotted the forest elf. With a monstrous roar, he charged, shaking the battlefield. Wise raised his hand and clicked his tongue. He realized Gord was no longer bound by his command spell. Calmly, he broke one of his own fingers, chanting another incantation. Instantly, Gord was slammed into the ground, crushed by an invisible weight so heavy his body cracked and splintered under it. Watching this, Alicia finally understood why Sajura had opposed Wise. His magic was devastating, but it came with a cruel cost: his very life force. Every spell demanded self-destruction, every broken finger a sacrifice. And though the power before her was terrifying, Alicia had already calculated her next move. The stench of something burning filled the air. Dino's eyes narrowed. He instantly realized the main entrance to the catacombs must have gone up in flames. Across from him, Alicia muttered with quiet satisfaction, her gaze fixed on his reaction as if savoring it. The plan had worked flawlessly. Anyone who tried to escape would have triggered the trap, turning the only way out into an inferno. The air itself felt heavy and damp, for Alicia had already destroyed the ventilation shafts days before. Dino spun toward her, shouting at the madness of such a reckless scheme. Beneath the ground lay pockets of explosive gas, remnants of a past disaster. One spark could end them all, but Alicia only welcomed that outcome. She wanted everyone buried in fire. That truth froze the survivors where they stood. They stared at the girl before them, horror dawning in their eyes. She wasn't just dangerous, she was insane, bold enough to plot mass murder with chilling precision. Dino's hands trembled, though whether from rage or fear he couldn't tell. In a heartbeat, he lunged at her, striking straight for her head. Alicia blocked at the last possible second. His speed was overwhelming, his strikes relentless. Blow after blow rained down, forcing Alicia back step by step. She countered with words as sharp as blades, taunting him, insisting the guild's destruction was his fault alone. Her words fanned his fury. Wise moved next, snapping another finger to unleash a spell. Thick, corrosive magic surged toward her. Alicia raised a shield in time, the impact killing several others instead. Wise froze, stunned. How could she see through his spell? He lashed out at Sajura, accusing the dark elf of teaching her forbidden secrets. But Dino cut him off, barking orders to secure the guild's escape routes. The two clashed briefly, shouting over one another until Alicia hurled her pendulum blades at them both, scattering the argument. She stood ready, eyes blazing with challenge. Wise's patience snapped. With a snarl, he crushed his fourth finger, channeling raw motion into a vast spell of decay, all of it aimed at Alicia. The air thickened, poisonous. Alicia's lungs burned, but she stayed calm. She could see the spell's color, its tangled structure. Inside its chaos, she spotted flaws, impurities within the elements, fire tainted by water, light shrouded in shadow. In seconds, she unraveled the mix and shattered it, her mana tearing through like oil splitting from water. Wise's jaw dropped. He understood too late. This was how she had broken the curse that bound Gord. Alicia charged straight into the storm of rot, unflinching. Dino readied his blade, but the decay spell forced him to dodge instead. Alicia whispered a quick incantation. Mirage, pain. Dino's eyes widened as phantom agony stabbed through him. The distraction cost him dearly. In one swift motion, Alicia slid low across the ground, her blade flashing. Steel ripped across Dino's stomach just as the wave of decay magic crashed over him, swallowing his body like a dark tide. Dino froze in shock as the sudden attack struck him. Wise's spell was impossible to dodge, and Alicia's blade cut across his abdomen, not deep, but enough to draw blood. The cursed mist from Wise's magic rotted Dino's left arm within seconds. Alicia swiftly backed away, keeping her distance as Dino staggered, nearly collapsing from the pain. But rage drowned out his agony. With a furious roar, he charged at Alicia, sword raised to cleave her in two. As he lunged, something fell from his pocket, a water spirit necklace. Alicia's eyes widened. This was her chance. She whispered the incantation, rushing water, and activated the stone within the pendant. A violent burst of vapor exploded outward, blinding Dino in a surge of white steam. Shielded by the fog, Alicia crouched low and dashed forward, slashing upward before Dino could even react. When the mist cleared, a deep wound split across his face. He didn't even realize when she struck. The cut was severe enough to drain the strength from his body, sending him crashing to the ground. But Alicia's battle was far from over. She quickly stepped back, spotting magical particles swirling in the air. Wise was still alive. The old elf snapped another of his fingers, roaring as he unleashed his power. This time, it was no ordinary spell, a simultaneous attack blending 3 different elements at once. There was no way Alicia could cancel something that complex. A violent explosion shook the cavern, a thunderous roar of colliding magic. Wise laughed, certain the girl had been obliterated. But his smirk faltered as the smoke cleared. There was nothing but scorched earth. No body. No trace of Alicia. A flicker of movement behind him. Wise's eyes widened. 2 pendulum blades whistled through the air, slicing into his neck with deadly precision. He staggered, blood gushing from the wound, but he refused to fall. Alicia's eyes hardened. He still wasn't done. She pulled 2 more knives from beneath her clothes and hurled them while sprinting forward. Wise broke another finger and released a wave of cursed mist just as Alicia's knives struck his throat again. She tried to dodge, but the mist spread too fast, filling the entire room and chasing her down. She knew she couldn't escape or cancel it. Not at this distance, not in her condition. Alicia shut her eyes, accepting her fate. If this was the end, it would be a draw, a death for both sides. But then something moved. Gord leapt in front of her, using his decaying body as a shield. The cursed mist ate away at him, but he didn't stop. He seized Wise by the throat, hatred burning in his fading eyes. With a final surge of strength, Gord crushed Wise's neck in his grip. The mage's body went limp, collapsing beside him. Alicia stared, stunned. Gord's monstrous face was no longer twisted with rage. There was a faint glimmer of humanity in his eyes, a silent thank you before the light faded completely. He had finally reclaimed himself, even if it cost his life. A sudden explosion rocked the cave. Someone had triggered a hidden trap, opening an escape route. The Assassin Guild's base was finished. Through the chaos, Alicia glanced at Dino. He was still alive, barely. The man let out a broken laugh. He told her she might have won, but her mentor wouldn't escape the hunter's pursuit. That regret would be her punishment. Alicia said nothing. She tightened her grip on her blade and stepped closer. The last thing Dino saw was her silhouette through the flames before everything went dark. His body was consumed by the fire as the underground complex erupted, tearing through the tomb above and even shattering the chapel on the surface. Flames engulfed the ruins as people gathered in panic, while Alicia slipped away unnoticed. Escaping the underground was pure luck. She had planted a thin thread through one of the air vents earlier, using it now to cast Shadow Crossing. Her mana was nearly depleted, and she staggered out of the burning chapel, drinking a recovery potion just in time. The Northern Frontier District branch of the Assassin Guild had fallen. There were still others out there, and no one knew how the nobles involved would react. But for now, Alicia allowed herself a moment of quiet victory. Hidden among the crowd, she disappeared, just another shadow fading into the night. Several days later, Alicia arrived in Baron Norf's territory. A faint chill lingered in the air. She stopped by a modest roadside tavern. Inside, the scent of stew and smoke hung heavy. When she inquired about life in the area, the woman spoke of a small, pleasant town overshadowed by recent hardships. Taxes had risen year after year, and beneath the calm surface lay quiet discontent. 2 years earlier, the Baron's wife had been killed by mountain bandits during a return journey. In his grief, Baron Norf had sought revenge, hiring mercenaries to hunt them down. The campaign ended in victory, but at the cost of ruin. His debts to a corrupt trade guild grew beyond repair, binding him to them ever since. Alicia listened carefully, realizing what the story implied. The bandits must have been the Dawn mercenaries, her former associates, and their extermination had been ordered by the Baron himself. The irony was bitter. The tavern keeper continued her tale with a sigh, explaining that the Baron had been forced to marry the trade guild's second daughter to settle his debt. She ended on a lighter note, remarking that Alicia's beauty would surely brighten their quiet town. The comment caught Alicia off guard. It had been a long time since anyone recognized her so easily as a woman. Before leaving, she gathered one more fragment of information. The Baron's daughter, Lady Nora, was known to have a strained relationship with her stepmother. The walk toward the mansion revealed a town surprisingly orderly and well kept. Despite higher taxes, no one spoke ill of the Baron. His leadership, Alicia thought, must be fair. perhaps even kind. She did not know why his family possessed a spirit tearstone, nor did she wish to involve herself deeply. Returning it was her only goal, and it seemed simplest to hand it directly to the Baron's daughter. Near the mansion's outskirts, something felt off. There were no guards, no wards, no signs of magical protection, an unusual lack of vigilance for a noble estate. It would be easy to enter unnoticed at night. The thought crossed her mind briefly before a soft, hesitant voice broke the stillness behind her. A woman stood there, neatly dressed yet modest, her demeanor graceful but humble. There was gentleness in her eyes. She introduced herself with quiet composure as Nora, daughter of Baron North. Her presence carried both refinement and warmth. The encounter felt too convenient. Alicia had not expected to meet her so soon. Yet Nora's manner was genuine, and her request simple. She only wished to speak to adventurer. Inside the mansion, the atmosphere was subdued and strangely empty. No servants lingered nearby. Nora prepared tea herself, apologizing softly for the impropriety. Alicia watched her movements with faint curiosity, noting the absence of any guard or attendant. The young noblewoman spoke of her life confined within the town's borders, her curiosity about the outside world, and her fascination with adventure. She asked about Alicia's journeys, the dungeons she had explored, the distant lands she had seen. Alicia obliged her curiosity with fragments of her story, the lighter parts only, tales stripped of blood and loss. Nora listened intently, her eyes bright with wonder. When she spoke again, her tone softened with a trace of melancholy. She had been promised to a man since childhood, but the engagement had been broken the previous year when her betrothed chose another. Despite the betrayal, she had accepted it quietly, unwilling to bring shame upon her family. The bitterness in her smile lingered longer than her words. Their quiet moment fractured when the door burst open. A tall woman entered, draped in elegance and disdain. Her voice cut sharply through the room as she reprimanded Nora, demanding she greet her fiancé, Linus, with proper obedience. The air turned heavy, the warmth of their conversation fading instantly. For a moment, her gaze met Alicia's. The woman froze, unsettled by the cold, unflinching sharpness of Alicia's eyes. Without a word, she turned on her heel and left the room, her composure visibly shaken. Nora sat in silence, confusion clouding her expression, while Alicia excused herself and departed quietly. Night had begun to settle when Alicia sensed movement behind her. In the narrow, shadowed alleys of the town, someone followed. Then came the sound of deliberate applause, a slow, mocking rhythm echoing against the stone walls. From the darkness, a group of men emerged. Their leader stepped forward with the confidence of someone accustomed to control. He introduced himself as Linus. His smile was thin, his eyes sharp. He said he wanted to bring Alicia to their guild. Behind him, one of his men shouted in anger, demanding repayment for a promise. Alicia recognized him, the scarred survivor from the chapel fire, a remnant of the assassin guild. His voice trembled with hatred as he accused Alicia of betrayal. The words barely left his mouth before a blade pierced his stomach. He fell, blood darkening the cobblestones beneath him. Linus barely glanced at the body. He turned instead toward Alicia, his tone smooth and measured. He spoke of the spirit tier pendant, claiming he had planned to purchase it from the Dawn mercenaries before their demise. Now he offered to buy it directly from her, 30 gold coins and a generous bonus if she agreed to cooperate with his guild. Protection, he said, against the assassins who would surely come for her. Alicia regarded him in silence. Her eyes betrayed nothing as she reached into her pocket and withdrew the pendant. Its blue light flickered faintly in the gloom. Linus's smile widened, already certain of his victory. He told her the Baron's household was bankrupt, that the pendant would eventually belong to him regardless of her choice. His words carried the smug certainty of a man convinced of his control. It was then that Alicia understood. This was Nora's fiancé. The realization twisted into quiet disgust. When Linus reached out his hand, Alicia stepped closer. The air between them grew taut, silent, dangerous. Then steel flashed. The movement was so swift that the eye could barely follow. Linus recoiled, a sharp cry tearing from his throat as blood traced a red line across his face. Shock overtook his expression. He demanded to know why she refused his offer, but Alicia's reply was wordless, her gaze unyielding. Her silence spoke of fury, the kind forged by injustice and blood. The guild he served had murdered Nora's mother for profit and ambition. Linus, trembling with rage, gave the order to attack. 8 men closed in from every direction. One raised his hand to cast an appraisal spell, and for a fleeting instant his expression changed. Fear replaced arrogance. He tried to warn the others, but the words never left his lips. Alicia's dagger struck first. The blade sank cleanly into his eye. The first man lunged forward. Alicia met him head on, her blade flashing once across his throat. Blood sprayed the cobblestones as he collapsed soundlessly. Another followed, but his body fell before his weapon even touched the ground. Shadows rippled at Alicia's feet as she invoked her technique. The darkness snaked upward, constricting one man's leg before he could react. A second later, her pendulum strike tore through his neck, silencing him instantly. Pivoting backward, Alicia hurled 2 daggers in a fluid motion. Without even looking, she felt them find their mark. One buried deep in the throat of the 5th man who had tried to flank her. A flicker of flame burst ahead. Another attacker had conjured a fire spell, its heat searing the air. Alicia whispered a defensive incantation under her breath and advanced deliberately. The reflected magic burst outward, turning back upon its caster. His screams echoed as the fire consumed him. Without pause, Alicia tore the burning man's cloak from his body and flung it at the next enemy, obscuring his sight. In the same heartbeat, 3 daggers whirled through the air, each one finding a vital point. A heavy axe swung toward her from behind. Alicia leapt, her boots finding the wall. Using the momentum, she looped a wire around the man's neck and landed behind him. A knee strike, enchanted for weight and force, drove into his spine. The crack of bone echoed in the dark. Only one man remained. For him, Alicia spared no blade. Instead, she unleashed an illusion of agony so vivid that he collapsed, clutching at invisible wounds, consciousness fading into terror. 8 bodies lay motionless in the alley, their blood pooling into dark rivulets. Linus was gone. Alicia found one still breathing. She knelt, forced a healing potion down. His eyes darted with fear as she demanded answers. From this moment on, the Thieves' Guild had become her enemy. Meanwhile, Linus stumbled through the night toward the guild headquarters, panic twisting his face. He screamed for the doors to be barred, trembling as he hid in a corner. His words broke apart into sobs as he tried to explain what had happened. But when he finally lifted his gaze, the color drained from his face. He shouted, a cry of pure horror. He claimed the monster had come for them. Above, through the narrow slits of the ceiling vents, Alicia had already found her targets. The slaughter that followed was swift and absolute. When dawn came, the guild hall was drenched in silence and blood. Authorities later discovered the corpses and a trove of documents detailing corruption and illicit trade between the Thieves' Guild and several noble families. The case was dismissed as an underworld conflict before the truth could reach the public. Those few guild members who had not been present that night fled the city in terror, spreading a single warning wherever they went. Never cross the ash-haired girl. Months passed. The city changed. Order returned where decay had once festered. Nora, radiant and free, was soon wed to a man she had chosen herself. Baron Norf divorced his second wife, and the Thieves' Guild crumbled into ruin. Before that, Alicia had intercepted the fleeing stepmother in the woods and ended her life without a word. Now she sometimes caught sight of the spirit tear necklace, its blue shimmer resting gracefully upon Nora's neck. Alicia had returned it in silence one night, leaving only a note. The debt has been repaid. The pendant, once said to be cursed, was in truth a sacred heirloom. It had belonged to Nora's great-grandmother, a spirit user who received it as a gift from the water spirit itself. Passed down through generations, it was a symbol of blessing, not misfortune, its power misunderstood by the church that had condemned it. Alicia often wondered why the same water spirit she once fought had left behind a magic stone in her path, yet she chose not to linger on the thought. When she finally prepared to leave the city, her eyes met Nora's from across the square. The young woman smiled, waving with unspoken gratitude. Alicia returned the gesture briefly before turning away. She was 9 years old now. Her body had grown taller, stronger, but the world around her remained just as ruthless. The matter with Grave was still unresolved, and remnants of the Assassin Guild continued to hunt her. This time, she no longer wished to run. Breaking her false adventurer tag, she cast the shards aside. From now on, there would be no aliases, no disguises. She was Arya the adventurer, and nothing else. If enemies came for her, so be it. Their malice would only feed her resolve. She would live unbound, feared by the underworld, and remembered as a storm none could cage. Far away, in another dark corner of the world, a surviving member of the Thieves' Guild shuddered as he whispered the rumors of the ash-haired girl. He never finished his tale. Flames engulfed him before the last word could leave his tongue. From the shadows stepped Carla, smiling, eyes alight with madness and delight. She had been searching for Alicia, the one who had destroyed both guilds alone. The thought that Alicia still lived filled her with unholy joy. In her eyes, Alicia was the only one who had ever truly acknowledged her existence, the only one who had promised to kill her. Carla lifted her face toward the burning sky, laughter mingling with the crackle of fire. She began to sing, a haunting, childish melody that echoed through the smoke, inviting Alicia to find her again. Their reunion, she knew, was inevitable. One day, when both had grown into women hardened by the world, they would meet once more. And when that time came, surrounded by flames and corpses, one of them would die by the other's hand. A year had passed. Elsewhere, the false heroine, Alicia, finally revealed herself. A sweet smile adorned her lips as she faced Melrose's butler, while Oz, standing beside him, showed clear signs of disapproval. With feigned innocence, Alicia asked if something was wrong with her appearance, as though unaware of the tension she created. Inside the carriage, Sarah's stern voice cut through the air, reminding Alicia to act with grace and propriety before men, as expected of a lady. The girl merely pouted in defiance, insisting that Oz was her butler, and therefore exempt from such manners. Sarah dismissed her claim with firm authority, warning that once Alicia was adopted by Count Mercius, such behavior would be deemed inappropriate in high society. It would only invite trouble. Dealing with Alicia proved to be a tiresome affair. Sarah recalled Haas's report, which mentioned that the girl had once been bullied by jealous women envious of her beauty. Since then, she had grown distrustful of women and deliberately sought protection from men. Beneath her innocent facade, however, lingered a cunning smile, sharp and deliberate. By the time the carriage reached the Mercius estate, servants had already lined the entrance to welcome their new charge. Alicia clung to Oz once again, pleading not to be left behind. The butler responded with polite distance, explaining that the Mercius household would now be her family. Before the girl could act out further, Sarah's reprimand silenced her completely. Sarah's cold stare held her in place, a silent warning heavy enough to pierce through Alicia's pretense. The girl sighed inwardly, forcing a trembling act of fear. Moments later, Count Mercius and his wife appeared to receive her. Alicia quickly complained that Sarah had forbidden her from offering a proper farewell, but the Count, recognizing Sarah's position, hesitated to intervene. Alicia ignored the Countess entirely and instead clung to the Count's arm with an overly sweet smile. The Count, charmed by her demeanor, softened at once. Their conversation turned light and familiar as if they had known each other for years. Sarah offered her formal greeting to the Countess, who, though composed, seemed equally disturbed by the girl's manner. With their duty complete, Sarah and Oz departed, leaving Alicia at the mansion's gate. The girl waved after them, calling for Oz to visit her often. Her voice was cheerful, yet her smile concealed something darker, a glint of malice that betrayed her deceitful nature. The false heroine had begun her new life under a mask of charm. At the royal castle, Sarah and Oz presented their 2-month report to Melrose. Though still doubtful that Alicia was truly his granddaughter, Melrose had no choice but to entrust her protection to the two siblings. That made complaints accumulated from all sides because Sarah is the head of security at the Queen's Palace, while Oz remained the Chancellor's personal butler. Since the grave incident, the underworld had suffered from severe manpower shortages. Melrose had been forced to remove all suspicious figures from the royal circle, leaving his forces strained and undermanned. Recruiting trustworthy individuals with untainted backgrounds had become increasingly difficult, as every capable candidate was fiercely contested among noble houses. Still, Melrose knew this was a lesser concern compared to what lay ahead. He turned to Mikhail for insight. The boy, now taller, his features sharper and his composure more refined, spoke reluctantly. The adoption of Alicia by a Viscount family, he said, had not been part of their original plan. Yet, her reckless claim of noble lineage had spread too widely, leaving Melrose with no choice but to legitimize her story to avoid scandal. Mikhail added that he would soon be entering the academy and could no longer be summoned easily for such discussions. Only then did Melrose recall that the boy was still 12 and a minor. A quiet sense of guilt washed over him for relying so heavily on someone so young. Mikhail, however, shared his grandfather's unease. He admitted he could not believe that Alicia truly belonged to the Moon's Rose family. Should she attend the same academy, he would ensure she was watched carefully. With that, Mikhail left the chamber. His expression hardened, his footsteps echoing through the quiet halls. The Melrose family carried an old legend, one whispered through generations. Long ago, the spirit of the moon admired the purity and beauty of a woman, blessing her bloodline with the moon rose, a flower said to bloom only beneath a moonlit sky. Along with it came a mark of divine favor, hair tinted pink with a golden shimmer, passed down only to the Melrose daughters, those most beloved by the moon itself. That color, soft pink and gold, glowing like dawnlight, had once captivated Mikhail. The memory of it never left him. If Alicia were truly alive, she would look exactly like that girl he'd seen long ago. After hearing Sarah's report, logic told him the girl he'd met couldn't possibly be Alicia. Yet, something within him refused to let go of the thought. There was a strange connection, a feeling that bound him to her. In darker moments, he imagined the worst scenario. If Alicia were to ascend to the royal family, perhaps he could replace her with Arya, the girl from his memories. The idea was absurd, even reckless. He could have done it, with the Melrose family's influence and his own power. But he couldn't bring himself to ruin Arya's life. He had searched for her in the Royal Capital Guild many times, but she was nowhere to be found. With a heavy sigh, Mikhail gave up once again, quietly wishing that one day, perhaps when they were older, fate would let them meet again. Meanwhile, Sarah prepared to return home. Melrose thanked her for her hard work, but the maid merely replied, weary and sharp, that she was only fulfilling her duty. The tension in her voice made both Melrose and his brother shudder. Sarah was exhausted, not just from work, but from bottled-up frustration. She understood that Alicia still struggled with noble etiquette. That could be taught with time. What infuriated her was the girl's complete refusal to interact with other women. That attitude made everything more complicated. Beyond that, Sarah had countless other duties that only she could handle, one being to care for Princess Elena. Since Alicia's disappearance during the mission, the princess had become volatile whenever she encountered anyone from the Dark faction. She didn't throw tantrums like a child, but she refused their protection, creating chaos among the ranks. Sarah still couldn't forgive Grave for his betrayal. She had once hoped Alicia would succeed her one day, but Grave's treachery had destroyed that dream. Then a young boy approached her. So, he asked if there was any news about Alicia. Sarah sighed. There was none. They embraced, happy to see each other again after so long. Sarah mentioned that when Alicia entered the academy, Seo would likely be assigned as her battle butler. Seo's expression darkened. The rumors about Alicia were far from pleasant. Still, he brushed off the thought and excused himself to train. With a determined look, he declared he wouldn't slack off. Not when he might face Alicia again one day. Sarah watched him leave, a faint smile on her lips. Soon after, Castro appeared, handing her a sealed scroll. He had already confessed his guilt in trapping Alicia in the forest. Though no longer involved with the royal family's protection, he'd been conducting his own investigation into her disappearance. The information he'd gathered lay within the parchment. As Sarah unrolled it, her eyes widened. Castro gave a small, knowing smile. If the rumor written inside was true, it could change everything. Without hesitation, Sarah ordered him to find Willow at once. Far away, in the Claydale Kingdom, within the Kendra Marquis territory, a land of cliffs and mountains, a line of carts rumbled through the rough paths. Hidden inside wooden crates were children, weak and powerless. Among them sat Alicia, dressed in a torn gown, her wrists bound. Yet her eyes burned with sharp determination. This time, she was caught in another conflict, one that would push her further and awaken a power greater than before. This is Kendra's territory, a lawless zone where illegal trade in child slaves and beastmen thrives in the open. A woman named Lemia, a member of a thieves guild, confronts their supplier, furious that the quality of slaves has continued to decline. The male supplier merely shrugs, explaining that gathering slaves has become increasingly difficult. Lamia clicks her tongue in disgust. She had demanded elves, yet what she received were frail human children instead. The supplier lets out a weary sigh and admits he cannot provide more. 2 of his slave hunter teams have been completely wiped out. Lamia briefly assumes knights have finally begun suppressing their operations in this region, but this feels more like the work of rival competitors. Suddenly, Lamia's younger brother Keith shouts excitedly. He has spotted a young girl inside one of the wagons, someone who looks unmistakably like she came from wealth. Lamia glares at the supplier, accusing him of hiding higher quality goods. The man laughs nervously and confesses that he captured the girl during transit. He claims the child appeared noble, so he saved her as a surprise. The excuse fails instantly. Both Lamia and her brothers narrow their eyes at him with open hostility. Keith eagerly demands that the girl be given to him alone, but Lamia snaps back sharply. Moments later, the girl is dragged out of the wagon by force. Her face looks dull and withdrawn, yet her appearance is clean, refined, and well kept. It is Alicia, moving under a perfect disguise. Lamia lets out a pleased whistle the moment she sees her. Keith wastes no time, cheerfully lifting Alicia's chin and inspecting her beauty up close. The next second, a dagger flashes through the air and pierces Keith's neck. With a single clean motion, the blade slices through his throat, killing him instantly. Another dagger flies at once, striking the supplier directly in the eye. Lamia freezes in shock, barely able to scream. Alicia narrows her eyes as opportunity opens before her, then bolts toward the forest without hesitation. 2 more of Lamia's siblings, Gigas and Troll, explode with rage and charge after Alicia, chasing her deep into the woods without a second thought. Alicia deliberately leads them between massive trees. Gigas hurls his axe, but Alicia dodges with ease and retaliates by throwing a dagger. At the same time, the giant takes a deep breath. His muscles swell unnaturally, and the blade bounces off harmlessly. Troll laughs mockingly, boasting about how extraordinary his brother's body is, then rushes forward to smash Alicia with a punch. Alicia whispers the skill Phantom Pain, disrupting Troll's movements. Taking advantage of the opening, she throws a bottle of lethal poison straight into his mouth. The bottle shatters inside, and Troll screams in agony. Seeing his brother like that, Gigas rushes forward on instinct, failing to watch his footing. A concealed pit trap collapses beneath him. He has no time to react. The trap is lined with countless spiked stones, and the moment his body hits the bottom, he dies instantly. Hearing the sound of his brother's death from above, Troll desperately tries to crawl away. Alicia conjures fire magic in her hand and throws it directly into the pit. The flames detonate, reducing Giga's body to ash, and moments later Troll follows him into death. Lamia finally catches up, panic flooding her expression as she finds both siblings already dead. Enraged, she unleashes hurricane magic, determined to kill Alicia at any cost. Her shock is immediate when Alicia avoids it effortlessly. The girl's leap appears almost fused with the raging wind itself. Lamia panics and follows with windcutter spells, hoping to tear Alicia apart, yet Alicia calmly forms a barrier in midair without difficulty. Using gravity, Alicia plunges downward at high speed, activating thrust as she moves. She pierces Lamia's neck with terrifying ease, nearly severing her head. In her final moments, Lamia still does not understand who Alicia is. She cannot believe someone who looks no stronger than a 3rd rank could kill her. As she stares in disbelief, Alicia releases the magic concealing her hair color. Lamia's eyes widen in horror as realization strikes. Alicia tears away her disguise and returns Lamia's gaze with cold indifference. The one who killed her is the ashen-crowned princess. 10 days later, in Baron Horance's territory, Alicia returns to her former town. 2 years have passed, and the place feels heavy with nostalgia. Back then, she had never left the orphanage, so no one should remember her now. Alicia hears that after a priest came to watch over the orphanage, the children's conditions improved. The priest has since retired, and the townspeople now take turns caring for the orphans with pride. Even so, Alicia feels disgusted. These same people once pretended not to see the abuse those children suffered. Without realizing it, her feet carry her toward the orphanage. She sees her past self reflected in its walls, filled with suffering. Peering through the gate, she notices the children inside are no different from before. Their faces still lack happiness. Alicia tells herself she only wanted to check the orphanage's current state. Suddenly, shouting erupts from the backyard. Alicia spots a young girl clutching a basket of food supplies. She remembers that this girl handles the cooking. The man grabbing her hair and trying to steal the basket is a young thug who regularly steals food. Alicia's irritation leaks out, and the pressure of her presence becomes palpable. The man approaches her instead, demanding money from her as if she were just another orphan. The kind girl cries out, begging him not to involve others and to take her money instead. Alicia smiles faintly. She is a stranger now, and this place is no longer her home. With that thought, she strikes the man with overwhelming force. His jaw shatters instantly, and he vomits blood. Alicia drags him away and bids her farewell. The kind girl hesitates, then stops her and asks if Alicia once lived at the orphanage. Though surprised, Alicia denies it and leaves without looking back. A small smile lingers on her lips despite herself. After that, Alicia heads straight to Galbus's workshop. She enters without knocking and greets him. Inside are Galbus and an elderly man from the old general store, Victor. The shopkeeper recognizes Alicia immediately. Without wasting words, Alicia places a small cask of liquor on the table and says she has a request for Galbus. The cask contains a rare special brew from Kendris. She then produces a gold coin, repayment for an old debt. Next, she pulls more coins from the shadow pocket in her palm. The stream of gold and silver seems endless, leaving Galbus and Victo staring in disbelief. They cannot comprehend how the once penniless girl now possesses such wealth. With a serious expression, Alicia asks Galbus to forge a custom pendulum blade for her, using that payment. At first, Galbus looks confused by the request. Then, Alicia calmly takes out her old pendulum blade. Understanding dawns instantly, and the dwarf's face lights up. Alicia explains that her pendulum dulls far too quickly. Galbus immediately grasps the issue. The problem lies in the pendulum's balance. He recommends using magic iron as the base material, as its quality would be far superior. Galbus turns to Victor and asks if he can obtain magic iron seeds. Victor answers with a confident grin. Galbus then asks Alicia to show the dagger he gave her long ago. He examines it carefully. The weapon is made of magic steel, not as refined as mithril, but capable of slowly regenerating itself by drawing on its owner's mana. From the state of the blade alone, Galbus can tell that Alicia has survived numerous brutal battles, far more than the weapon's regeneration can keep up with. He says it is probably time for Alicia to have a weapon made specifically for her. That dagger lacks destructive power and sits awkwardly between rolls, never fully excelling at any. Alicia refuses. She feels the blade suits her fighting style perfectly. To her, the damage and wear come not from the weapon, but from her own techniques still being incomplete. Galbus sighs, then hands several gold coins to Victor, asking him to secure materials for Alicia's new weapon anyway. Alicia freezes in shock when she hears Galbus only ask for a single gold coin as payment. She protests internally, knowing full well that the money she offered could never cover magic iron, new blade, and a newly forged pendulum blade. The two elderly men brush her worries aside. A child Alicia's age should not be burdened by prices or value. The warmth in their voices hits her harder than any blade. Alicia bows deeply in gratitude. Galbus and Victor respond with loud laughter, completely sincere. Victor even reaches out and gently pats Alicia on the head. Their kindness makes her chest ache with warmth, a quiet happiness swelling inside her. Galbus asks for 1 month to complete both the new weapon and the pendulum. When Alicia turns to leave, Galbus panics, assuming she will be defenseless in the meantime. Alicia casually lifts part of her clothing, revealing a spare dagger strapped to her thigh. Both men immediately spit out their drinks in shock. Galbus recognizes the craftsmanship as his brother's work, while Victor scolds Alicia sharply, warning her never to expose herself like that in the city. After that, Galbus hands her a temporary replacement dagger with a rather unusual shape. Alicia tests it by swinging and thrusting several times. The sensation is incredible. The weapon is slightly heavy, but it feels capable of piercing even a thick monster skull. Victor finally reveals the truth. It is a special knife he secretly crafted for Alicia long ago. With her new weapon in hand and her heart at ease, Alicia bids farewell to the two old men. Next, she heads to the Adventurer Guild. The receptionist recognizes her immediately. Alicia requests a rank assessment. After checking, the receptionist announces her rank as rank 3. A male adventurer nearby explodes in outrage, shouting insults and refusing to accept it. The receptionist firmly defends Alicia, stating that the guild has already determined her rank. The man refuses to back down. If a mere child can be rank 3, then he claims he should be able to reach it as well. He loudly accuses the guild's appraisal system of being flawed and arrogantly demands to test Alicia's strength in combat. Alicia glances at him. Even his own party shows no intention of stopping him. With a tired breath, Alicia lowers her hood and turns to face him directly. Gasps ripple through the room as people realize she is a woman. One person from the Thieves Guild recognizes her instantly. Trembling, he steps back and declares that he wants no part in becoming an enemy of the Ashen Crown Princess before fleeing the guild hall. Hearing that name, the adventurer who challenged her abandons his challenge and storms out with his party in frustration. Alicia returns to the receptionist and calmly asks about rumors of a dangerous monster sighting. Before the woman can answer, someone calls out to her by the name Aria. Alicia turns. A young boy and a young girl stand there, hesitation clear on their faces. The girl looks especially shaken, trembling as she stares at Alicia's beautiful face, her shimmering hair, and her refined yet battle-ready clothing with its sturdy skirt. Disbelief washes over her. The Arya she once knew was a boy, and realizing the truth leaves her overwhelmed. Alicia smiles softly. She recognizes them at once. They are Gil and Shuri, two people she met long ago in this very city. Alicia heads to the combat training area inside the guild for her evaluation. She grips her dagger and activates the cyclone skill, striking the wooden targets in front of her. The force of the attack shatters not just one, but several wooden blocks at once. She copied the technique from Lamia, recreating it after seeing it only once, a feat that required immense effort and control. From behind her, the female receptionist praises her performance, noting that Alicia possesses an excellent foundation for growth. She asks whether anyone has trained her before. Alicia answers with a faint smile. Long ago, it was Willow who guided her. Shortly after, the receptionist hands her the rank 3 badge, which Alicia immediately puts on. As she leaves the room, she notices Gil and Shuri waiting nearby, clearly trying to greet her. Alicia responds with a brief shake of her head and walks past them as if they are strangers. She knows the Thieves Guild in the city has claimed they will not oppose her, but she cannot trust that promise completely. More than anything, she fears dragging people she knows into her problems. For a moment, she considers eliminating everyone here who might be a threat, but that would make her no different from Grave, who once tried to kill her simply to be safe. Alicia turns into a narrow alley with Gil and Shuri following behind. This was her intention. A confined space is safer for what needs to be said. She tells them firmly not to involve themselves with her. Shuri sighs, pointing out that a rank 3 adventurer clearly cannot stay with beginners like them. Alicia understands. They want to form a party with her. Gil refuses to give up. There is a place they want to go, and Alicia asks them to explain properly. Gil says they come from a small town in the west. Their mother died when they were young. Their father remarried, and soon after, a baby brother was born. Then a plague took their father as well. Shuri explodes in anger, saying their stepmother conspired with her own family to drive them out of the town and seize the farmland their father left behind. Gil adds that during their hardest days, they met Alicia. She gave them money and saved them, and that encounter became the reason they both chose to become adventurers. He proudly shows the weapons they purchased from Galbus, a steel knife and a steel sword. Alicia knows those weapons are not cheap. They are more than sufficient for the two of them at their current level. Small acts like that, along with Galbus and Victor's constant scolding, reveal just how kind-hearted those two old men truly are. Gil explains that in that town, they know a senior adventurer from their homeland. Sometimes they work as couriers and receive combat training in return. The real problem is a rumor about orcs. It has not yet been officially announced by the guild, but between the ruins and the town, orcs are said to have formed a settlement. There are around 50 rank 3 orcs, 4 rank 4 orc warriors, and 1 rank 5 leader. The existence of an orc general has already been confirmed. According to information from the receptionist, the Baron must keep forces behind to maintain order. At most, only 100 soldiers can be dispatched, most of them rank 2. They would likely be wiped out. At present, there is not a single rank 4 adventurer in Baron Horance's territory. To defeat even one orc general, a party of 5 is required with at least 3 members at rank 4. Alicia understands why neither the guild nor the Baron can make a reckless decision. The problem is, that town is Gil's homeland. He is deeply worried about his younger brother. Shuri, on the other hand, claims she does not care. She refuses to acknowledge that child and harbors nothing but hatred for their stepmother. Gil hesitates, then begs Alicia to at least allow him to go to the town himself. Alicia refuses without hesitation. She will not grant that request. When Gil steps closer to plead again, Alicia swiftly sweeps his legs out from under him, sending him crashing to the ground. She presses her short dagger forward and tells him plainly that if he goes with them, they will die. She makes their weakness unmistakably clear. Then she throws her pendulum toward a narrow alley nearby. A man is struck and cries out in pain. He tries to flee, but Alicia's pendulum coils around his neck first, choking him from behind and forcing him to collapse. Gasping for air, Alicia knows he belongs to the Thieves Guild. No excuse he could offer matters to her. She snaps his neck without hesitation. Gil and Shuri turn pale at the sight. Alicia explains that she is being hunted by both the Assassin Guild and the Thieves Guild. She refuses to bear the burden of protecting people who cannot protect themselves. In her heart, she believes this is the best solution for them. They exist in entirely different worlds, one in the light, the other in the darkness. Before leaving, she promises that she will investigate the town's situation and help anyone who wishes to escape. Shuri cannot help but think of her younger brother and breaks down in tears, begging Alicia for help. Afterward, Alicia returns to the Adventurer Guild to briefly check the map. The receptionist immediately notices her and explains that the guild is requesting a rank 3 scout to return with information from the site. She also provides the latest intelligence on the orcs. Alicia reads through it and purchases several supplies. The next day, she departs without delay. Reaching the town would normally take 5 days on foot, but she believes she can arrive in just 2. Along the way, she spots a hobgoblin ahead, still unaware of her presence. Unwilling to waste time, Alicia swiftly cuts off its head and continues running. She grows uneasy when she notices the complete absence of patrol soldiers along the main road. Given the situation and the guild's inability to secure rank 4 adventurers quickly, she doubts the small town can hold out much longer. 2 days later, Alicia arrives. Several fields are already destroyed, and the place looks more like a large village than a proper town. At the gate, a guard shouts to question her purpose. Alicia states that she is an adventurer here to assess the situation. The guard immediately allows her entry. She hands over some of the supplies she brought. Inside are sacks of salt. The soldiers smile brightly, clearly grateful, as it is something they desperately need for their meals. Their expressions soon darken. Many farmers outside the outer walls have already become victims of orc attacks. Orcs are omnivores. Once their current food runs out, they will inevitably return to attack the town itself. Not long after, another group of adventurers come. It is the party belonging to the man who previously challenged Alicia to a fight. Their eyes meet, sharp and hostile as tension fills the air. The man was named Kevin. He snapped at Alicia, but one of the guards quickly stepped in to stop him. Kevin's companions also urged him to calm down. One of them, unable to hide his excitement, asked whether Alicia had really reached rank 3 and stared at her identity marker with open admiration. Reluctantly, Kevin asked what Alicia's true purpose was. Alicia answered simply. She said she was checking the situation and asked whether the villagers could evacuate. That was enough to make Kevin explode. He shouted that the people there loved their land dearly and accused Alicia of knowing nothing about them. One of the guards explained that only those with money or relatives elsewhere had evacuated. The rest were mostly families with the sick or elderly. If they had more time, a full evacuation might have been possible, but the Adventurers Guild could not mobilize out without securing a rank 4 party. Still burning with anger, Kevin clicked his tongue and challenged Alicia to prove herself if she truly was rank 3. Alicia glanced at him, and in that moment, she seemed to understand where his anger came from. She asked Kevin's friends to step aside and let her fight him. She accepted his challenge and told him to see for himself how a rank 3 adventurer fought. Kevin, already at his limit, drew his sword and charged. Alicia did not move from her spot. She merely stared at him, deliberately releasing an overwhelming aura of power and intimidation. The air instantly turned heavy. Everyone present felt a chill run down their spine, frozen in place. Kevin himself felt fear creeping in, but he forced it down and swung his sword. Alicia struck first, punching upward and snapping his head back as her fist connected with his jaw. She followed with a brutal kick to his stomach, then slammed her fist into his arm, knocking the sword from his grasp. She never once used her daggers. She kept striking him relentlessly. Alicia saw no true intent to kill within Kevin. With resolve that week, what was he even fighting for? His body was already battered beyond its limit, yet Kevin forced himself to stand only to collapse moments later. Alicia firmly asked why he carried a sword. Kevin stared blankly at the sky. His voice trembled as he answered that he wanted to protect the people there. Alicia looked at him for a moment, then told him to do it properly. She turned to the guards and asked how long they needed to evacuate everyone. The answer was at least 4 weeks. Alicia gave them 1 month. She would buy them as much time as possible, no more than that. To her, it was a promise she had made to Shuri and Gil. 2 days later, Alicia found traces of orcs in the forest. High-ranking monsters were intelligent, and from the footprints, she could tell they were moving in organized groups of 3. Not far away, she spotted a rank 3 orc. Her guess was correct. She let out a quiet laugh to herself. Holding back 50 orcs alone was an absurd plan. Still, she slipped into the abandoned village that served as their base. She wrapped her shoes in rabbit skin to silence her steps and smeared mud over herself to mask her human scent. There were many orcs on guard, and she had no idea how many in total. She felt a powerful presence at the center of the village, an orc general most likely. For the first few days, she observed carefully, learning their positions and patrol routes. After a week, she realized that orcs were terrible hunters due to their massive bodies. Ordinary orcs gathered meat for higher ranks, and when they grew frustrated, they would inevitably target the nearby village. To prevent that, Alicia deliberately left dead rabbits along the paths. The lower-ranking orcs were delighted and eagerly brought the meat back. At the same time, Alicia began preparing poison. In the second week, she put her plan into motion. She poisoned their food and water little by little, carefully avoiding suspicion. Patiently and meticulously, she increased both the potency and the spread. By the third week, the orcs were at their limit. Most of them showed signs of dehydration and physical weakness. They had begun to suspect something was wrong, meaning her method would no longer work. They would soon search for fresh food and water, and the nearest source was the village. But it still need. 1 week remained until the evacuation was complete. Alicia spotted a weakened rank 3 orc passing by. She knew this was her chance. Leaping down from a tree, she landed on top of it and drove her dagger straight through its skull. 2 more orcs rushed over in shock. Alicia swung her pendulum weapon, targeting their eyes and robbing them of sight. She closed the distance, pulled free her dagger, then drew another from behind her back and stabbed both monsters through the neck. They died without resistance. She drank 2 stamina recovery potions. From now on, it was a race against time. How many orcs could she kill before the orc general noticed? She struck again, ambushing a second group. She killed one instantly, causing the remaining 2 to roar for help. Alicia retreated slightly, staying alert. She threw one of her daggers into the air to draw their attention, then struck the orc in front of her bare-handed. Catching the falling dagger, she plunged it upward into the monster, killing it. The last orc fled. Alicia chased after it only to freeze when she saw their numbers. A large group was heading straight for the village. She had no time to observe further. She decided to wipe them out right there. She leapt toward one of them, but an orc shout rang out from afar. She clicked her tongue. She had been spotted. Her attack still killed one ordinary orc, but then something far worse emerged. From the bushes appeared a rank 4 orc warrior. Alicia panicked and kicked a corpse toward it to create distance. The warrior did not hesitate, cleaving through its fallen comrade without a second thought. Alicia threw several daggers, but the orc used its own ally as a shield. From behind it, a second rank 4 orc charged, clad in armor and wielding a spear. Alicia dodged desperately and cast Phantom Pain on one orc, using it as cover. At that moment, the spear pierced straight through the orc she was hiding behind and tore deeply into Alicia's arm. Suddenly, she felt another murderous aura from her right and jumped away just in time. A massive blow smashed into the ground where she had been standing. A third rank 4 orc stepped out from behind the trees, wielding a terrifying axe. Alicia's eyes widened. How was she supposed to fight 3 rank 4 orc warriors at once with an injured arm,